Chapter 59. The Tower of Song. Yunshi closed his eyes and held crane-winged twin swords, which just flew back to his hands. On his chest, the wound cut through by the sword started to heal. Due to the extraordinary performance of the crane-winged twin swords, his desperate tactic achieved complete success. Including Child Yunhe, Child Xin Yan, and Child San Quan, even Yunshi himself didn't expect that the pair of crane-winged twin swords would display such terrible strength in his hands. Hiss. Ha. By using the breathing method he learned from Hua, Yunshi recovered his health and observed the secret of crane-winged twin swords at the same time. The twin swords were the best weapons Yunshi had ever obtained. By holding them in his hands, he could feel the difference between it and mortal weapons. It was so light. That was the first impression Yunshi had holding them. Why could the twin swords fly in the air so nimbly? It was all due to its property of being as light as nothing. As long as he could control them, he could easily use all sorts of inconceivable flying sword skills. Between the female sword and the male sword, there were special attractive and repulsive forces. Plus the exquisite wing patterns on the blade, the twin swords have incredible maneuverability in air combat. The most important thing was that when Yunshi held the twin swords in his hands, he could feel the palpitation of the twin swords from the bottom of his heart. He even vaguely felt that it was linking with his bloodline. Spirit weapon. They were a pair of top-quality spirit weapons. Holding the twin swords in his hands, Yunshi loved them so much that he almost couldn't bear to part with them. Little she, this pair of swords are only suitable for the people below the hero rank. It's not that precious. Seeing that Yunshi's eyes were so eager when he looked at crane-winged twin swords, Hua felt a little jealous. Naturally, he knew the twin swords were unusual. They could even be called prospective divine weapon. She didn't know why, but it seemed that the twin swords were very suitable for Yunshi. Blood-stained secret skill couldn't make the twin swords act like that. Let me have a look. Hua took the crane-winged twin swords from Yunshi's hands. She gazed at it, then frowned. Something was wrong. The twin swords were rejecting her. They were good swords. However, she didn't know why, but they disliked her. If she used blood-stained secret skill to force it to obey her, it'd probably choose to self-damage to avoid it. Yunshi could use it. That waste could barely use it too, but not her. Why? Did the twin swords discriminate against women? It's a pity that I can only use you in the trial. After taking the twin swords back, Yunshi said and shrugged his shoulders. There did exist such a wonderful, occasional encounter in the world. He had never seen the crane-winged twin swords before, but after obtaining it, he immediately found that it was as if it was tailor-made for him. It was light like nothing, very suitable for Yunshi since he was practicing the flying swallow sword. In addition to its nimble attack style and its deadliness that was beyond the mortal rank, it and Yunshi were like a match made in heaven. Ding! The crane-winged twin swords made an euphonious sword tremolo. It made Yunshi's heart quiver for an instant, looking like he vaguely felt something. Unfortunately, Yunshi was still at mortal rank. He didn't know what did this mean. Okay, let's put the twin swords aside and go to the ultimate great tower. Because she was prohibited to help Yunshi in the 3rd district, Hua was pretty angry by now. She was already tired of killing a group of wastes dozens of times. Now, it was her show time. No matter who you were, as long as you dared to get in Yunshi's way, I will sweep you all away. Well, I have a foreboding. The ultimate trial won't be that easy. Yunshi raised his head, looking at the giant great tower. If the thing evolved as his though, perhaps the ultimate trial would be extremely difficult. The twin witches. Would the enemy be White Lotus or Red Lotus? Suddenly, countless bells resounded on the empty coastline. Along with the light, a pure song swept the land. The bloody first district. The second district of the erupting volcano. The brutal third district. In all the districts, all blood and dust were purified by the song. A gust of strong power swept the entire coastline. What a terrible power! For the first time, Hua Hua changed her expression. This was the first time that Yunshi saw such a serious expression on his childhood sweetheart's face. Even when she fought against the hero-rank male fiery dragon, she still looked very casual and relaxed. Since their childhood, Yunshi had never seen such a solemn look on Hua Hua's face. La, tonight, no one sleeps. My prince, come to meet me. The following curses will come true one by one. The world won't accept you, and you will be swallowed by the darkness. Whether you decide to come or escape, you will be cursed. It will chase you and kill you. Incarnadine the sky, blacked the earth. Blood has nourished the monster, and the nightmare has opened its eyes. Only the tower, shining as usual. Come on. Go to the top of the tower and meet your princess. Only the person who broke the prisoner's cage can reach the place of the princess. With the familiar sound of singing, the little coastline world started to change its color to what the girls sang. The sky was incarnadined by blood. The earth was swallowed by the darkness. The first district, the second district, and the third district were swallowed and covered by the mists of darkness one by one. Dimly, he saw large quantities of monsters running out from the mists. Unlike the opponents transformed from the childs, the 5 tiger generals and all sorts of strange beasts, those stuffs walking out from the darkness were covered in thick air of death. They looked like ashes that had been deprived by all warmth. Go! Yunshi grasped Hua Hua's little hands, who hadn't yet understood what happened, rushing together into the only light and hope of the world, the great tower. The last trial was coming. He had no way to go unless he went to the top of the tower and saved the imprisoned princess. Yunshi didn't know what would happen if he lost the trial, but his instinct told him that those black stuffs weren't good. They weren't some gifts that the stars prepared for him. The trial wasn't a game. Yunshi knew that better than anyone. The nightmare was coming. Now, he and Hua Hua needed to find the light, the last hope of the world. My princess, I'm coming to save you. Chapter 60, Princess and Guardian. My prince. Princess. After being pulled and entering the great tower with Yunshi and hearing the melodious singing echoing around the sky and earth, Hua Hua looked at Yunshi with suspicion. She felt that something in the dream was wrong. If this was a dream, how could she feel the touch of Yunshi's hand, their heartbeats as they ran together, and her irrepressible euphoria? They were all too real. I wander in the darkness, once dreamed the whisper that no one could hear. Now, I see the road, the fate, at least, at this moment, let me open myself to you. The unreachable wish, the trampled wing. Lowering my head in the darkness, and waiting for your coming. The shadow of tears, the shadow of the moon. They overflow my palms. My lips are trembling in the darkness. Come to find me, come to look at me. Treat me as the world's best princess, my prince. Even I'm covered in bumps and bruises, I don't regret to falling in love with you. As long as I can stay with you, enjoying the same time with you, darkness and sadness will warm up. The whirling mist let me forge the ring of star and moon for you, in order to witness our forever love. Our love will turn into light, shining the darkness and going to immortal. The sad, soft, hot, yearning sound of singing resounded in the old great tower, winding around Yunshi's body. That was confession and confidence. It was the last light and the only hope in the world that would be covered by darkness. Here was the Tower of Fire, the last redemption of the world. Ah, who is she? How dare she sing such a shameless song? Little she, tell me, it's not a song about you, right? Hua Hua was trying to overcome her desire to draw out the two-handed sword from her back while displaying a murderous look on her face. His childhood sweetheart's radar of jealousy was starting to scan the potential rival from all directions. This is my first time coming here. Yunshi wasn't lying, but he didn't tell her the truth either. Who was the princess he needed to save? What was the relationship between the princess and the world which was going to be swallowed by darkness? Too many questions appeared in Yunshi's heart. This was his first time taking the formal trial. Compared to the formal trial, the trial in the dark forest was like a playing house game. After running and running, there wasn't any monster in the empty great tower. There was only a spiral staircase leading to the top of the tower, and the more and more terrible atmosphere as he ran upwards. Be careful, little she. There are probably very strong enemies. Hua Hua had found this at the first moment she stepped in the great tower. She could feel a very terrible atmosphere at the top of the great tower. There was a burning flame. There was a shining light. That wasn't an opponent the male fiery dragon could be comparable to. I know. My opponents are very strong. However, we have no choice. To Hua Hua, this was just a dream. It wouldn't be hurt even she died. However, as the tested person, there was no way back for Yunshi. Even at the top of the tower, that was as dangerous as Dragon's Nest or a tiger's cave, he had to go to there to finish the ultimate goal of the trial, save the princess. If so, I will fight side by side with you. We will win, no matter who the enemy is. Hua Hua's eyes looked unprecedentedly serious. Comparing to the time she casually killed the male fiery dragon, now, Hua Hua's battle will was fully on. Boom! The two-handed sword broke the door leading to the top of the tower. Yunshi and Hua Hua rushed together into the last battlefield. On a huge wooden cross, the Holy Virgin White Lotus was tied in the center of the cross by black chains. The raging fire was burning her, but there was no signs of scorching on her small naked feet. My prince, though her two hands were hung on the cross and her whole body was tied by black chains, White Lotus's pale eyes still gazed at Yunshi with happiness. Prince. Hua Hua glanced at Yunshi with a weird look, then tightly stared at White Lotus. Why? Why this girl looks so familiar? I remember as if in the last dream. Boom! Before Hua Hua remembered anything, the fire licked White Lotus's feet and raised to the sky. The enormous power broke the tower top, and then, a 3 meters tall monster, who was surrounded by flames, appeared in front of Yunshi's eyes. It wore a crimson armor skirt, held a scarlet flame sword with spiral grooves, and looked like a translucent woman. Even if it just stood still, it had almost made Yunshi choke. On her morning glow-like cloak, large amounts of fire powders were burning and dancing along with her breathing. Jump, little she. Hua Hua's words warned Yunshi in time. Subconsciously, Yunshi jumped up. Swish! Countless fire powders came crashing through below Yunshi's feet. If Yunshi hesitated just now, he'd have died. She wasn't like any enemy Yunshi met before. If he didn't hear Hua Hua's warning, perhaps he'd have been killed at the first instant. In the face of 10 times power, any tactics, strategies, or skills were useless. Moreover, the power of the red monster was far more than 10 times Yunshi's power. Sister. No. White Lotus anxiously gazed at the huge figure, which was wrapped by flames and was temporarily separated from her. Get out of the way. Red Lotus snappily stared at Yunshi, raising her Red Lotus holy sword again. She didn't know why she had this inexplicable dream again. Besides, she had to separate from her sister White Lotus temporarily, becoming her sister's flame guardian spirit. It seemed that this form conformed to some rule of the world and she felt it was very easy to handle. However, due to this, she had to defeat any people who dared to get close to the princess. She didn't need anyone to tell her to do it, because it was an elder sister's natural duty to kill any bad men who dared to get close to her little sister, right? You want to kill my little she. Apparently, Hua didn't realize who the flame guardian spirit was, but at the very moment she saw the spirit attack Yunxi, she lost her temper. This time, she wouldn't allow Yunxi to fight against the guardian spirit, because though she didn't know who the flame guardian spirit was, but even 10 male fiery dragons weren't her opponent. Even if they were at the same hero rank, there was still a large gap among different individuals. This spirit was a troublesome one. It seemed she couldn't keep hiding her true power. Fortunately, this was just a dream. She didn't need to worry about how to deal with it if she damaged the environment too much. I will show you the true power of the sky-flying bloodline. As blood dropped down from her fingers, Hua's eyes changed. I am sorry for the delays this week, just out back from the hospital about 2 days ago, been lying in there for a week. Anyways, chapters like usual, please enjoy. Please check it out our Patreon page. Q1. Chapter 61, Tragic Azura. The booming sounds of metal colliding resounded at the top of the exploded Great Tower. Yunxi's childhood sweetheart and the Red Lotus Holy Virgin of the Twin Witches were starting a fighting that was far beyond Yunxi's understanding. They were both super geniuses. One of them was Yunxi's childhood sweetheart, who he never understood thoroughly, and was a super sword girl that could use the god sword skill sky-flying sword. The other was Red Lotus, who succeeded the position of the Witch of White Lotus Sword domain and was so famous that you could even hear her name in Western God's domain. In order to protect Yunxi. In order to protect White Lotus. Enemy, die. Invader, die. What? Was this a fighting I could take sides in? Watching the fighting between Hua and Red Lotus, Yunxi felt he was totally useless when faced with a fight at this level. Prince, come here. Taking the opportunity that Hua and her sister fought so fiercely that they couldn't distract themselves from the fighting, White Lotus stealthily waved her hands to Yunxi. Your Highness Holy Virgin, what are you doing? After blocking the shock wave caused by the fighting between the two monsters, Yunxi tried his best to go toward the tied White Lotus Holy Virgin. I did nothing. Some power of the world influenced my sister. She became that violent monster. She also wanted to be a quiet sleeping beauty waiting for her prince's kiss. However, it seemed that some rules of the world chained her on the wooden cross from the moment she entered the world, and her sister became the eternal flame spirit guarding her. The only thing she could do was to sing from the top of the single great tower to call her prince to save her. I see. How can I save you? After knowing the origin and development, Yunxi was having cold sweat. If he didn't go perform the side quest and obtained Hua's help and only used his own power, even if he passed through the 3rd district due to luck, he would be killed by Red Lotus at the very instant he faced the ultimate challenge. What an extremely difficult formal trial. The star's special consideration made Yunxi want to cry. You can. White Lotus gazed at Yunxi with tenderness and love. Even if Hua wasn't here, she could still help Yunxi. The most difficult part of the trial was how to enter the Great Tower. I'm waiting for you, my prince. Do you remember the love token you gave me? This world has its own rules. You need to do one thing to suppress my sister and save me. As hearing White Lotus's plan, Yunxi couldn't stop beads of sweat dripping from his forehead and back. If he did that, Hua would kill him. However, if he didn't do it, the world would be destroyed. Oh, he didn't want to make mistakes. It was the world forcing him. Hua lightly leapt up. In her hands, the two-handed heavy sword, which could even be used as siege weapon, burst out blue light. Temporarily, Hua overcame the gravity, standing upside down in the sky. At that moment, time also temporarily stopped. Even the burning fire powders which surrounded Red Lotus also paused in the sky by the will and spirit of Huahua's sword. Sky fly, crossing slash. The 3 meters tall guardian spirit's body was covered with wounds and exposed Red Lotus's true body inside it. Her 2 hands raised her Red Lotus holy sword, as the blazing cloak waved on her back by the wind. Hot sun, burning the sky. A column of scorching fire raised to the sky. This was a fighting between extraordinary power and extraordinary power, a bloody battle between 2 hero-rank strong people. The tremendous crossed sword light and the huge column of fire exploded together. They almost destroyed half of the giant great tower. Great! Huahua was very excited. She had waited too long to meet such a spicy battle with an opponent at the same level with her. You! Wait, bastard, what are you doing? At first, Red Lotus was absorbed in staring at Huahua, the most threatening enemy. However, when she took a chance to glance at her sister, her anger exploded. Boom! Countless flames burst out. Regardless of having turned her back to Huahua, Red Lotus frantically rushed to the cross. Little she. Huahua didn't take this opportunity to attack Red Lotus, because she was even angrier than Red Lotus. Her little she, her childhood sweetheart, was holding the poor, lovely girl's hands. He lowered his head and gave the girl a soft, sweet kiss on her hand. Arf! White Lotus! No! Little she! Red Lotus and Huahua went mad together. I give you my love. In that case, I can shine the world. White Lotus was indulging in Yunxi's kiss. Finally, she tried to be the first. The time between 2 lovers was so sweet. I wanted all your first experiences. I wanted to become the only one in your heart. For you, I willed to become the eternal flame of the world, to deprive all darkness. You were the light of my life. You were the forever I hoped. You were the lover I waited. Give it to me, my prince. White Lotus reached out her small hands and put the ring of star and moon she forged in Yunxi's hands. Ah! Yunxi could feel killing intent. 2 very strong killing intents. One was from his powerful childhood sweetheart, the unbeatable sword girl, who could kill the male fiery dragon like she was killing a poor dog. Another was from White Lotus's elder sister, Red Lotus, one of the twin witches, who could turn into a burning guardian spirit. None of them was an opponent that he could be a good match for. More exactly, he could only wait to be killed by them. What should he do to defuse the crisis? At this time, Yunxi vaguely understood how his past life died. Fortunately, he had a backup this time. The girl was also the most important person of the world. Though he didn't know why she wanted him to give her the ring, which looked totally unlike the mycalics he presented her before, however, since he didn't have more information, this was his only choice. You bastard! Don't touch my White Lotus. Red Lotus got crazy. She turned into the red-hot guardian spirit, rushing towards Yunxi. She really wanted to kill him. Little she, explain this. Huahua leapt to the sky again. The 2-handed heavy sword was dyed bright red. She was angry. This was the first time that Yunxi saw Huahua so angry. Was I playing with fire? Yunxi tried to weep, but failed to shed a tear. He could only look at the girl with the ring of star and moon in his arms. Don't worry. Trust me. Trust me. Trust the girl who was always waiting for you. After putting the ring of star and moon on her head, White Lotus looked pretty happy. Again, the song resounded in the world, which was going to be swallowed by the darkness. I wander in the darkness, once dreamed the whisper that no one could hear, the unreachable wish and the trampled wing. Lowering my head in the darkness, and waiting for your coming. The whirling mist let me forge the ring of star and moon for you, in order to witness our forever love. Our love will turn into light, shining the darkness and going to immortal. I am sorry for the delays this week, just out back from the hospital about 2 days ago, been lying in there for a week. Anyways, chapters like usual, please enjoy. Please check it out our Patreon page. Q1. Chapter 62, The Primal Fire. Inside the stainless white radiance, White Lotus guided Yunshi's hands to put the ring of star and moon on her head, declaring to the world their brave oath. Today, I hold his hands and tell all the people in the world. From this day forward, I'm going to a couple with him. For rich or for poor. For better or for worse. Like the stars shining in the infinite night sky. Our hearts linked together, never to be separated. We wish for love, we want to stay together. If our tenderness can suffuse the world, that would be fantastic. No, not only so. For you, I'm willing to become the eternal flame to bring light to the world. That was the girl's decision. For the sake of her lover, she volunteered for that. The world was filled with darkness and despair. Countless dead souls were wandering in the nightmare. They couldn't rest. They couldn't sleep. Therefore, she would become the light that would light up the world, to be the initial fire. Boom, between earth and sky, a huge white lotus bloomed. Then a layer of crimson fire surrounded White Lotus. White Lotus and Red Lotus combined together in such a weird way. At the last sanctuary of the world, they lit the column of fire, shining the sky and earth. The red sky and black earth ushered light again. One after another, bonfires appeared in all the corners of the dark world. The world was lighting up. Even the fire couldn't change the true nature of the dark world, it just brought a slender hope. Yunshi could barely see the puzzled souls going towards those bonfires from the void. Then they transformed into human figures, gazing at their own two hands in confusion. They didn't have memories of their pasts, but also represented the hope of the world. They were ashes birthed from fire, wandering souls corrupted by the dark world. The tower of fire lit up by White Lotus and Red Lotus supported them so that they could be born in the bonfire. The destiny of the world had changed. The world, which was supposed to fall in perpetual darkness, would sing a song of blood and fire again. After losing all their memories and returning to the world from the bonfire, those undead had to explore the world and fight against the terrible monsters born from the dark side. The flame kept burning, the fighting would never end. What's this? Unlike the newbie trial, Yunshi clearly felt the reality of the world. If the stone soldiers, the green hippo and the male fiery dragon were opponents the stars summoned from the nearby regions around the small town. Then the dark wave which swept across the world and the undead who were returning to the world from the bonfire, were undoubtedly also a part of the world. And White Lotus, as the person who lit the primal fire, was a very special being to the world. So, this is a real world. Yunshi vaguely remembered that Mayer had said that the trial world was a dream world the stars helped him link to. However, the current situation told him that it wasn't just as simple as a dream. The dark and the fire, the bonfire and the undead, and the primal fire lit by the witch. Yunshi had a feeling that it wasn't the end between the world and himself. It was probably just a beginning. Looking down from the top of the great tower, the place lit by the primal fire, here was just the edge of a vast continent. The dark forest and the great tower were just two infinitely small parts of the world. At a distance, there were majestic mountains and imposing old castles. In the horizon, there were some indiscernible objects that linked the sky and the ground. Little she. White Lotus. As Yunshi eyed the vast area, the fighting between Hua and Red Lotus started again. His strong childhood sweetheart and the perhaps stronger Red Lotus waved their weapons at the same time, running towards Yunshi, who was gently hugging White Lotus in his arms. Sorry, sister. He's the only one I won't give up to you. White Lotus made a naughty smile towards the resentful Red Lotus and Hua Hua, then used one of her fingers to draw a seal in the air. One person, one city, one heart, one wall. A rhombic wall suddenly appeared in front of Red Lotus and Hua Hua. That was a god's skill Yun she had once glanced in the seed of the twin witches, Void Seal. However, at that time, the sword appeared in the void, but this time, it was a wall. Boom! A flame 2 times more violent than before blasted. Swish! Swish! Following that was a big crossing sword attack. Hua Hua's 2-handed sword bounced off and cracked. One person, one city, one heart, one wall. When it came to attacks, White Lotus was inferior to her sister. However, if we were talking about defense, then she was undoubtedly the best. The twin witches, one used a sword and another one used seals. One was expert in attack and another one was expert in defense. When they teamed up, they had no weakness. Hence, when Red Lotus found that her sister blocked her attack by using the Wall of Heart, she couldn't believe her eyes. Her gentle, graceful, and innocent sister was resisting her. In other words, herself. No, this couldn't be White Lotus's fault. It was all the bastard prince's fault. This damn dream. This cursed world. Little she, be careful, I'm not going to preserve my strength. After seeing White Lotus hugging Yun Shi, Hua Hua's killing intention rose suddenly and sharply. Burst gauge. Tremendous blood power, far more terrible than the male fiery dragon, burst out from Hua Hua's body. If anyone still claimed that Hua Hua was at 3rd rank now, that person must be blind. Even 1,000 green hippos were nothing when faced with the current Hua Hua. Another skill and power that Yun Shi didn't know. Hua Hua, how many god's skills were you still hiding? Don't worry. We're blessed by the world, my prince. Behold, the glory of the stars is shining on us. White Lotus and Yun Shi were acting intimately. They hugged each other, reveling in the fairy tale-like atmosphere. Oh, the world was so wonderful, and the flame was so warm here. If this moment could last forever, what a wonderful dream it would be. Oh, the stars are coming, Yun Shi raised his head. Looking at the tardy lights of the stars, Yun Shi breathed a sigh of relief. Hong! Hua Hua went into her super mode. She broke 3 layers of the Wall of Heart by one hit and rushed towards Yun Shi. The 3-meter-tall flame spirit turned into a flash of red-hot light and also flew at them with anger. At that very moment, the lights of the stars dropped and covered Yun Shi. The first formal trial came to an end. I am sorry for the delays this week, just out back from the hospital about 2 days ago, been lying in there for a week. Anyways, chapters like usual, please enjoy. Please check it out our Patreon page. Thank you John Doe for the donation. Queue cleared. Chapter 63. Huge Harvest. After returning to the Palace of Stars, Yun Shi lost himself in the warm, sweet taste of White Lotus's lips. At the last moment when the starlight wrapped Yun Shi, it looked like White Lotus realized something. She kissed him fiercely and didn't part from him until the last second. After that summer and meeting that big sister, it was the first time that Yun Shi was at a loss after being kissed. He was so puzzled. Master, you did well. Before Yun 11 returned to the earth, the cute star fairy Mayor kissed him again. In the Palace of Stars, she kept her human form but didn't do anything special that was different from what she did when she was still in her golden, little dog form. She was always so ebullient regardless of where she was and what moment it was. After his face was full of Mayor's saliva, Yun Shi finally got a free moment to check what he had obtained in the trial. The first were the souls. A great number of souls. Taking the green hippo that Yunshi had encountered before as a basic unit, the souls he obtained were about 16 units, which meant that they were equal to 16 hippos. Most of the souls were from the stone soldiers he had killed in the 3rd district. The next were his fighting spoils. Although he couldn't bring them out of the trial world, but the 3rd rank units Yunshi had killed all offered him weapons. The 5 tiger generals offered him 5 refined long lances, and the 3rd rank stone soldiers on the bridge also offered him a big heap of swords, lances and halberds. However, his toughest enemy, the archer in red, only offered him a refined longbow, which made Yunshi sigh for this strongest archer's poverty. Finally, the most valuable part came. Child Si Nian offered his dark blue 2-handed heavy sword. Unsurprisingly, it was made by the Thunder Army in the Western God's domain, and was obviously more advanced than the sword Yunshi obtained in the 1st district. Child San Quan offered him his strange fan sword. It was made in Satsuki sword domain and called Spirit Bird Fan Sword. It was a high-level spirit weapon which could be used by a priest, swordsman, and alchemist, and if necessary, its 5 fan blades could combine into one and become a Taoist sword. The last of the last, the famous swords which were handed down from age to age by Child Si Nian's family, the crane-winged twin swords. They were made the godlike craftsman's successor OEZ, and had grown into super spirit weapons after thousands of years. The first characteristic of the crane-winged twin swords, the more talented their owner was, the more power the swords could display. The second characteristic of the crane-winged twin swords, flying crane wings. When they were forged, they were mixed with some super materials from the Eastern God's domain. They were as light as air and existed side by side. Even if you were a mortal, you could still use it to display some sword skills such as flying sword. The third characteristic of the crane-winged twin swords, the sword spirits. As time went by, 2 sword spirits had been born inside of the twin swords, and only the swordsman who could master his heart, could hear the twin swords' voices and master their power. The extra characteristic of the crane-winged twin swords, the twin swords could only be used by a man, but not a woman. The current state of the crane-winged twin swords, a standard godly weapon. It deserved Hua's favor. Its characterizations had made it above the level of all the other weapons. It was the first godly weapon Yunshi had ever seen. The most valuable part was that the godly spirit weapon could even be used by mortals. If it wasn't because Child Yun he couldn't display the power of the twin swords fully and was too arrogant, Yunshi wouldn't even have gotten through the 3rd district. Other than these weapons, the 3rd district also offered Yunshi dozens of green crystal fragments, which could be used to strengthen his weapons. However, what disappointed Yunshi was that these green crystal fragments couldn't be used to strengthen the crane-winged twin swords. It seemed that they needed more advanced gem fragments. After obtaining the crane-winged twin swords, Yunshi didn't think that he needed any other low-level weapons, and the equipment he obtained this time were all weapons. Therefore, it seemed that he didn't need to use these green crystal fragments temporarily. The last reward was to choose one of the seeds that the stars offered, which was what Yunshi was eager for. Unlike the weapons, these seeds could be used to strengthen Yunshi himself and provide a high growth rate. Hua's seed, which Yunshi had obtained in the newbie trial, had made his combat power have a great change within a few days. This time, there were 3 seeds waiting for him to pick from. Except for Hua's seed, they were the strongest 3 seeds Yunshi had ever seen. The first seed was from Child San Quan. Child San Quan's seed could let him master Taoist skills, alchemy, 5-animal sword skill, and a skill called quick thinking, which allowed him to think 3 times faster than ordinary people. It was quite a good seed. Compared to the green hippo's seed which could only offer him strong power, this seed was more comprehensive, and the skill, quick thinking, was incredibly strong. If you could think 3 times faster than ordinary people, it was the equivalent of giving you 3 times the usual study time. No wonder that Child San Quan could learn the knowledge of a priest, chemist, and swordsman at the same time. The difficulty to merge the seed, normal. The affinity of the seed, normal. The predicted merging time, 3 months. It was quite a mediocre seed and could be regarded as a typical representative of third-rank elites. If Yunshi was in a situation that needed power immediately, it could be a good choice. The second seed was from the mysterious archer in red. The archer seed was named the Eidolon Archer seed. It specialized in act alone and snipe. It could let its owner master spiral arrow skill, double arrow skill, seeker arrow skill, and shocking arrow skill. Special ability 1, Eagle Eye, which allowed the user to snipe his enemies from 4 miles away by using a tailored longbow. Special ability 2, Hard Eye, which was learned from practice and actual combat, and could let the user master the current situation. Even if there was only 1% possibility that could turn the tide in a battle, this ability could let its user grasp that opportunity. Special ability 3. Not Awakened. It was an extremely strong and mysterious ability and could be provoked in some special situation. Balladline Godly Weapon. Not Awakened. It is supposed to be a bow, but still unknown. The difficulty to merge the seed, high. The affinity of the seed, excellent. The predicted merging time, 3 years. Whoa. This is terrible. At first, Yunshi thought that Child Sanquan's seed was already very great, but if he compared it with this seed, it was just a waste. This was also the first time that Yunshi saw two, in the description of seeds, except for Huahua's seed. If referring to Huahua's power when she fought with Red Lotus in the ultimate tall tower, this archer in red had great potential. However, why did he have excellent affinity with an archery career? It was the first time that he had seen this seed, but the stars told him that he had excellent affinity with it. Finally, Yunshi moved his eyes to the last seed, which had made his heart palpitate with excitement. This wasn't the first time that Yunshi had seen this seed. However, compared to the last time he had seen it, the description of the seed contained more information this time. It was the seed of the strongest genius in the entire White Lotus sword domain, the Twin Witches. White Lotus and Red Lotus's seed. Chapter 64. Their seeds. Yunshi still clearly remembered what he'd seen after the newbie trial from the brief introduction of the Twin Witches' seed. At that time, he hadn't known that they were the Twin Witches, so he had just named their seed the Sleeping Beauty seed. This seed had 4 skills: Vacuum Seal, Cutting Blade, Void Burst, and the Great Circulation. Just upon hearing the names, one could understand that they weren't immortal skills. If it wasn't because the stars told Yunshi that it was very hard for him to merge with the seed, which would have taken him at least 100 years, perhaps he wouldn't have held back his desire to choose the strongest seed at that time. However, he had a second chance now, and this time, the information about this seed was way more detailed and terrifying than what he'd seen in the newbie trial. The Twin Witches' seed. Let's see the description of Red Lotus's seed first. Vacuum Seal was Red Lotus's sword skill. She was an expert in the sword. With her Red Lotus Holy Sword, she could cut off mountains and rivers, breaking through clouds and sky. It was a top-killing sword skill. Cutting Blade was an attached skill of Red Lotus's Holy Sword. It could cut off 70% of low-level spirit weapons and 30% of middle-level spirit weapons, as easily as it would a piece of cake. Red Lotus's avatar. When Red Lotus was angry, she was blessed by the demon god. She could turn into the form of a Gant demon god. When she was in this condition, she would lose her sanity and attack everyone except her sister. The sealed god weapon, Red Lotus Holy Sword. No one knew where Red Lotus had obtained it, but it was so powerful that Red Lotus had to seal most of its power. It could be regarded as a standard god weapon. Then, let's see what White Lotus's seed could offer. Void Burst. It was White Lotus's defense spell. It could create a wall of heart, which could even withstand the attack of a standard god weapon. It could also be used as an ancillary attack, which meant that it was a powerful secret skill that could be used to defend and attack at the same time. The Great Circulation, White Lotus divined to know the coming future. It could tell her what her enemy, whose power wasn't 3 times stronger than her, would do within 3 seconds. The White Lotus Sanctuary, it was a blessing that only White Lotus could learn. It could dispel all evils and offer the power of heart to the friendly units who were within the range of 10 miles. The standard god weapon, the Ring of Star and Moon. It was blessed by the stars and forged by using White Lotus's blood, containing the breath of the primal fire. The first special talent of the twin witches, 2 bodies, 1 heart. They were perfect partners. When they fought together, they didn't have any weaknesses. The second special talent of the twin witches. It was an unknown godly talent. When the twin witches made concerted efforts, they would show terrible power. The bloodline godly weapon. It was an unknown legacy of White Lotus God's domain and was supposed to have relations with the primary power of the domain itself. The difficulty to merge the seed, extremely high. The affinity of the seed, extremely excellent. The predicted merging time, 50 years. Godong. Yunshit swallowed as he looked at the twin witch's seed. It was really a great lure. The merging time reduced from 100 years to 50 years. Although it was still far away from what he could reach, but at least, it was a giant leap. Besides, Yunshi knew that the seed's growth speed could be accelerated, and its capacity could be extended. It was like the sky-flying sword, 10% done, what he obtained after choosing Huahua's seed. The more he learned from their seeds, the more he knew about their potential and power. Should I choose their seed? Apart from Child Sanquan's seed, which Yunshi had decided to give up, the Archer in Red seed and the Twin Witch's seed were both great lures for him. After the 2 trials, he had gained some understanding about the 3 seeds he could choose as his last reward. The first seed could improve his power as quick as possible. It was a seed he should choose when he had an urgent need. The second seed contained great potential and unknown growth speed. The third contained the strongest power and the most terrible characteristics. However, he needed time to absorb them. The more powerful the seed was, the longer the time he needed to merge with them. The only way to accelerate the progress was to increase his affinity with the seed. In short, after obtaining the seed, if he wanted to improve his power, he had to increase his affinity with the seed as fast as possible. Well, did this mean? Looking at these seeds and remembering what happened after he obtained the love system of Starchild, Yunshi had a strong sense of foreboding. Was the love system of Starchild built to teach him how to fall in love with multiple girls and survive after that? Oh, holy crap. Was that really a thing that could come true? If the truth was exposed, he would definitely have a bloody future. At the least, his terrible childhood sweetheart, Huahua, would never just sit there and see such a thing coming to true. Besides, even though he could set White Lotus aside, but Red Lotus really wanted to kill him. Mayor, were the stars going to murder me? After realizing what the seed would bring him, Yunshi just wanted to cry out. Why? He was just an ordinary baker in the small town, and his dream was just to marry a girl who was also born in the same town and was willing to spend her life with him. Huahua was his childhood sweetheart and his first love, but someday, she would leave that small town. The twin witches were 2 big shots he would never imagine knowing. He couldn't even dream of having any relations with them in his wildest dream. Master, the stars want you to grow up as fast as possible. What they did were all for your own good. Mayor innocently looked at her master. Wake up the sleeping beauty by kissing her and save the princess from the tall tower. They were both perfect dramas in the stars' memory. They surely can improve your ability to love. Again, Yunshi felt how deep and special the stars' love was. Yeah, wake up the sleeping beauty in the forest, what a romantic story, and save the imprisoned princess from the tall tower, what an exciting exploit. However, he wasn't a prince nor a knight. The green hippo had killed him over 100 times, and the stone soldiers had killed him 315 times. And in the future, he certainly would die far more times than the past. Can I stop taking part in the trials? Why can't the stars just let me live normally and in peace? Yunshi forlornly gazed at his star fairy mare. You can, master. If you don't mind that your ex-girlfriends will catch you, and do this sort of things and that sort of things to you. You won't even have a chance to die, and you will have this sort of things and that sort of things done to you by them. Mayor honestly told Yunshi what he would face if he didn't become strong. I choose the twin witch's seed. Yunshi pressed his fingers on the last seed with mixed feelings of grief and indignation. Anyway, he would die. However, if he didn't fear death, he would fear nothing. Therefore, I chose you, the twin witch's seed. Chapter 65, Escape Plan. At the very moment Yunshi held the twin witch's seed in his hand, overwhelming information poured into his brain. Vacuum seal, the red lotus holy sword, the ring of star and moon, white lotus holy field. One secret after another, ones which mortals would never know, were being imprinted into Yunshi's soul. Yunshi felt sick and dizzy. This was the price for receiving power far beyond his limit. The stars could help Yunshi merge with the hero rank seed, however, they couldn't help him avoid this pain. Arf! Yunshi knelt down on the ground of the Star Palace as he kept smashing the ground with his two hands. Compared to the pain he had felt when he received Huahua's seed, this was so much more intense. Huahua's seed contained unlimited potential, however, her seed had not transcended the mortal rank limit. But the twin witch's seed was the superlative seed amongst all hero rank seeds. Yunshi felt as if there was an immense library trying to be crammed into his brain. The painful truth was that he couldn't stop this process, and as he looked at the immense library, he could only see the books on the bottom shelves. He couldn't even see the books on the upper shelves. All the hero rank skills were marked with the tag sealed. None of the vacuum seal, the great circulation, and the twin witch's special blood talents was an exception. As I expected. I can't use it, Yunshi had expected this. The level of the twin witch's seed was too high for him now. In fact, the seed of the mysterious archer in red was his best choice, and since he needed to improve his combat power as fast as he could, Child Senquan's seed was also an optimized option. However, he had chosen the twin witch's seed. Why? He needed about 50 years to merge with the seed. It was no fooling matter. Probably, he also chose it because of their past relationship. Yunshi smiled bitterly. The taste of White Lotus's lips still remained on his lips. Without her devotion, enthusiasm and initiative, he wouldn't have passed through his first formal trial. At the end of his formal trial, she had chosen to be the primary fire that would ignite the dark world. Obviously, she had made some sacrifices. Therefore, choosing the twin witch's seed was in recognition of her sacrifice. He didn't think that he would make any further contact with the mysterious twin witches. Therefore, this was his gratitude but also his final link with them. Because soon after this, he would leave here. He would go to other sword domains where no one would know him. He would practice by himself to become stronger as he traveled through worlds. Escape White Lotus Sword Domain. This was Yunshi's final choice after thinking about it again and again. Huahua was going to leave the small town and join the Palace of Sword. She would step on her road to glory. After finishing the Palace of Sword's entrance exam, the twin witches would return to the Palace of Sword and were destined to be the twin masters of White Lotus Sword Domain. As for him, in order to dodge the unknown apostle who had arrived at Sky Sword God's domain and was searching for him, to leave White Lotus Sword domain would be his best choice. He counted it again. His savings were able to get them through the Stellar Bridge and escape to another sword domain. After that, he would practice and build up his power and earn money at the same time, then use his fastest speed to escape from Sky Sword God's domain. He thought that he would finally be able to find a remote domain, where no one would go to look for him. As long as he kept going through the trials, he should be able to become stronger in the future. He still didn't know when would he stop worrying about being found by the apostle. Maybe after hundreds of years. Or after thousands of years. His past experience in the small town, his sweet memories about his childhood sweetheart, Hua, his encounter with the twin witches, the secret room where he had stayed with his sword skill teacher, his secret game with Miley, Phyllis, and Yi Li. There were too many things he didn't want to lose or forget. He just wanted to be a normal baker, living in peace. However, the coming of the stars and the series of deep trials had let him realize that he would never have these happy days again. He'd better escape from White Lotus Sword domain before anyone noticed him. Hua's seed, and the twin witch's seed, they both would become his precious memories. After he ran away, the two seeds would follow him and help him grow up. He would go today. The day the Palace of Sword exam was being held. At daybreak, he would secretly leave his home, leaving White Lotus Sword domain. Hua, goodbye. Red Lotus and White Lotus, goodbye. Miley, Phyllis, and Yi Li, goodbye. Mayor, are you ready to rove all over the world with me? After merging with the twin witch's seed, Yunshi looked at Mayor with guilt in his eyes. It looked like the star fairy had to roam all over with them, although it just came to the world not long ago. As long as I can stay with you, everywhere is my heaven. Mayor flew around and hummed songs with joy. Thank you, Mayor. At least I still have you. It was really wonderful to have the stars send you to me. After checking the rewards he had obtained from the trial, Yunshi resolutely left the Palace of Stars. He would start a new life. He would leave his hometown, parents, and his small bake shop, going to unknown distant worlds. He had made this decision after he finished his newbie trial and practiced in the valley. He needed to kill more monsters like the green hippo in order to obtain more seeds. He needed to constantly keep getting stronger and walking straight on his own road. The deeper the star's love was, the harder the road he would step on would be. Puff! Yunshi opened his eyes and saw the familiar ceiling. However, he felt that something strange was lying down on his body. Was it his illusion? Yunshi lowered his head, then saw his familiar childhood sweetheart. The girl had a lively ponytail, soft and healthy petite body. She was in a really deep sleep. She didn't even know that her saliva had drooled onto her beautiful face. That was his childhood sweetheart, the most unique girl in the world, Hua. Why was Hua on his bed and lying down on his chest? For a moment, Yunshi's mind turned into a blank sheet. Oh. No, kill you, bitches. Hua was still immersed herself in her dream and didn't notice that Yunshi had woken up. From her angry, unrelenting expression, she was having a very bad nightmare. Yunshi couldn't stop the beads of sweat from dropping down from his forehead. Before he began his escape plan, he already faced a massive barrier. Chapter 66, The fight has yet to begin. Already fleeing, why was Hua in his room and lying down on his chest? Did that mean when they were in the trial, they actually stayed in the same bed and kept such a pose all night? Looking at his childhood sweetheart's sleeping face, Yunshi was at a loss. Dawn was drawing nearer. The first ray of sunshine had entered through a crack in the window and shone on Hua's delicate face. The 16-year-old Hua was so lovely, youthful, and adorable. She practiced hard every day, but that didn't mar her skin even a tiny bit. She was still full of vitality. In another 2 years, she would grow up to be a wonderful beauty. Even now, she was already one of the most beautiful girls in the small town. At this moment, she was lying down on his chest. She looked like a sleeping kitten, clever and lovely. No one would imagine that she was a strong girl who could brandish a two-handed sword and kill a fiery male dragon with great ease. Obviously, she was still a mortal, but she could defeat the male fiery dragon and fight against the future master of White Lotus Sword Domain. In the end, how many abilities was she still hiding? Hua, Yunshi stretched out his hand and stroked Hua's hair. For a moment, he was at a loss. Rage powers. His touch was like opening a switch. Instantly, Hua woke up. The next moment, an invisible windstorm swept through Yunshi's room. Hua's rage powers burst out, impacting the room and making a mess of everything. Ah! Little she. Hua hadn't completely woken up yet. She confusedly looked at Yunshi for a moment, then pulled him up. I'll protect you. None of those bastards can lay a finger on you. You are my little she. No one can take you away from me. Yunshi's back was drenched in a cold sweat. He pretended he knew nothing, then asked her, Hua, did you have a nightmare? Nightmare. Dream, Hua frowned tightly. She looked around the room, then suddenly realized something. Dream, yes. Was it a dream? Of course it was just a dream. Little she, you were not being kissed and taken away by those bitches. You went somewhere else and I couldn't find you. Hua, I didn't go anywhere. Look, I was just sleeping in my room. Yunshi pretended that he was innocent and asked back, but you, why did you come to my room? Your room. Right. Here is. Hua gasped for air and rubbed her temple. Strange. That was strange. Just now, she was still fighting against those bitches who were going to take away her Yunshi. Those bitches were very strong, so she had to arouse all her latent power and use the unique skill that she was told she should never use in front of others. Even so, she still couldn't beat them and had to end the fight, neither in victory nor defeat. As a result, when she woke up, she suddenly found out that everything was just a dream. Was it really just a dream? Then why was her heart in so much pain? Why did she still feel as if her most precious treasure had been snatched away? Hua, did you have a nightmare? Yunshi asked his childhood sweetheart again, emphasizing that everything was just a dream. The Trial of the Stars was in an unknown dream world which had a totally different timeline and world rules from the real world. Otherwise, how was it possible that humans could revive inside a bonfire? Everything was just the stars' test. It was a nightmare, but not completely. In fact, the first half of the dream was good. Hua fell into her sweet memories. She wanted to keep everything she could still remember firmly within her mind before she completely forgot the memories. Have a date with little she, slay the dragon together little she, and kiss with little she. Naha. Why are my memories constantly becoming hazy? Details, remember the details. If only the first part of the dream had happened, it would be the perfect sweet dream. Why was the dream continuing on like that? Some bitches wanted to take away her little she, and she could only watch that happen. How could she endure such a thing? She would never tolerate such a thing. Little she, was it really just a dream? Hua sniffed all over Yunshi's body but only smelt Mayer's smell. Okay, her little she was only stolen in her dream, not in the real world. Yunshi was still the boy she knew. Her childhood sweetheart had only the little dog's smell on his body. Very good, little she. You haven't been stolen. Hua patted her small chest. Her expression made her look like a survivor of a great disaster. Yunshi looked away with guilt. According to the plan, he should have left town during the last darkness before the coming of dawn. He had written a lot of letters. The letter he would send to his parents, the letter he would send to Hua, and the letters he would send to Miley, Phyllis and Yi Li. However, changes occurred faster than he could implement his plan. Before he had sent the letters, his childhood sweetheart had sneaked into his room. Had she had a premonition of his plan? Otherwise, why had she come to his room? Little Shi, I have made a decision. Hua walked in circles around Yunshi's room, then finally made up her mind. She herself didn't know the reason, but from a few days ago she had felt distracted. Perhaps it was because she hadn't eaten Yunshi's special bread for a period of time. These past few days, she had come to check Yunshi's room several times, but hadn't seen Yunshi even once. Finally, last night, she had caught Yunshi in his room. She felt that she couldn't just sit by idly and remain indifferent. In order to protect her little Shi, to see him grow up healthily and smoothly, and for the most important reason, to keep Yunshi away from those bitches in her dream, she must make him reborn. What have you decided? Yunshi had a terrible foreboding. Yunshi knew his childhood sweetheart better than anyone. She was a super genius who was afraid of nothing. Even if she faced a fiery male dragon, she would tear it to pieces if it blocked her way. As a genius, nobody could guess her thoughts. Little Shi, come to the Sword Palace together with me. I will let you become my maid so that I can protect you. Hua's bright eyes gazed at Yunshi, declaring the end of his escape plan. Go to the Sword Palace together with you as your maid. Yunshi looked at his childhood sweetheart in open-mouthed incredulity. What kind of brain could make such a conclusion and plan? Well, little Shi, you're still too weak right now. But fortunately, I have the legacy of Great Sword Maid. I think it's very suitable for you, Hua said with a serious face, although Yunshi still thought that she was just talking nonsense. Great Sword Maid. What's that? Well, this matter is settled, so no more arguments. Little Shi, let me make you stronger. I swear I won't let any bitches get you. Rest assured. The power of this legacy is absolutely beyond your imagination. You can practice it even after you reach the 7th rank. This is one of the highest maid-type legacies of the Western Gods domain. Chapter 67, The Great Sword Maid. Little Shi, you don't know how powerful the maid legacy is. Even I, when I was a child, was once tempted to inherit one of the best maid legacies. If you haven't awakened your talent, I can't even let you inherit it. Little Shi, you have reached the 2nd rank. Why so soon? Did you go to practice the limitation training? Yunshi looked helpless and lifeless. His childhood sweetheart pulled him running at full speed on the street, and he didn't even have any guts to resist her a bit. All the people who saw this scene showed soft and kind smiles on their faces. Little Shi, little Hua, you really get along well with each other. Hua, when will you and Yunshi get married? You are really a lover's couple made in heaven. Sigh. Yunshi couldn't tell them the truth, he just couldn't say it. Looking at the uncles and aunts who cared about them, Yunshi didn't know how to tell them the truth that he was being kidnapped by his childhood sweetheart. Boom. Hua pulled Yunshi into her home, then kicked the door open, rushing into the front yard. I remember it was buried here. Humph. Papa tried to cheat me into choosing this Great Sword Maid legacy, but he didn't expect that I had found out his intent from a long time ago. Hua made a few turns around the 3rd willow in the courtyard, then decisively waved her fist and punched the ground. Boom. As the sand and the dust blew up into the air, a dark box appeared near Hua's feet. It looked like the box had been specially treated, and was buried at the bottom of the willow root. Since it was buried so stealthily, Hua, how did you find it so easily? This is, Yunshi looked at this seemingly normal thick box, having an ominous foreboding in his heart. Well, little she. Come here, Hua smiled with satisfaction. She pulled Yunshi and ran towards her room. Poor Yunshi didn't even have a chance to resist her and was pulled into his childhood sweetheart's room. In Hua's room. Yunshi hadn't entered Hua's room for a long time. However, he still felt that Hua's room was really incredible, just as he used to feel when he was a kid. Swords. One row after another, swords. From assassin's sleeve daggers to standard two-handed swords, Hua's room was full of all sorts of swords. In his childhood, he had thought that they were just decorations. However, after he saw Hua slay the dragon, he had realized that they were all real weapons. Actually, this room was the largest and the most powerful arsenal in town. I remember that there is a special way to open the box. Hua put the heavy box onto the table, then glanced at the swords. She took down a sword from the wall which was about 1 meter long with a blue-colored sword handle and a shining light gold-colored sword blade. The sword was engraved with a series of ancient and mysterious runes on its blade. Its handle was decorated with a floriated blue cross. At the crisscrossed part of the sword handle and the sword blade, there was a valuable ruby inlaid into the center. The person who holds this sword will be an immortal king. The person who holds this sword must not break the knight's precepts. I will fight for justice. Hua read the runic letters on the sword blade, then gently sliced her finger with the sword. In the name of my sky-flying bloodline, I witness this oath. The bright red blood flowed out from the wound and flowed along Hua's fingers, dropping onto the sacred steel sword blade. Instantly, holy golden light spread out quickly from the sword blade. Cut open the steel. Hua activated the sword, then resolutely brandished the sword, chopping the sealed black box. The black box issued out a horrible scream. At that moment, it looked like a living being trying to escape away from the sacred steel sword. It's no use. You're dead. Hua coldly brandished the sword again. This time, the black box was cut into 2 pieces from its middle part. A gorgeous maid's black uniform drifted down from the broken black box, then was suspended in midair. Anyone could see that this maid's black uniform was unusual. Yunshi even felt terrible bloodlust from the maid's uniform. Oh, is it the legendary Killing Princess's maid uniform? Hua was also shocked after she saw the maid's uniform. Killing Princess. Yunshi felt his back grow cold. His sense of foreboding was growing stronger and stronger. Well, in history, the Killing Princess was one of the top 3 great sword maids. In her time, she was the most powerful great sword maid without any rivals. Although it's said that she is one of the top 3 great sword maids, however, the 3 maids didn't live in the same period. Therefore, many people think that she is actually the strongest sword maid. The sword skill she was good at was a dark-type sword skill was called Infinite Killing, and this sword skill was famous due to its 2 properties, high-speed movement and fatal hit. She was an expert at killing. I am afraid that the demons she'd killed were even more than the total population of the whole Sky Sword God's domain. If it wasn't because the other 2 maids had an extraordinary military record on many battlefields, she would have been recognized as the #1 great sword maid. Before she became a great sword maid, she was an exiled princess whose country had been occupied by demons. After she became a great sword maid, she killed almost all the demons in her country. It said that at that time, the moon was dyed red due to too many deaths. The more details Hua spoke of, the more surprised Yunshi felt about this gorgeous maid's black uniform. Hua, where did you get this terrible legacy? The exiled princess, the killing maid, the maid's deep black uniform, the legacy of a great sword maid. Even in the entire Sky Sword God's domain, the maid's uniform legacy was a high-level treasure. Why was this kind of thing buried under the willow tree of your house? Yunshi still remembered that the willow tree had been planted by Hua Hua and him when they were young. Well, very well. Although it's not the number 1 maid's uniform Auroral Morningstar, nor the number 2 maid's uniform Divine Shield, but this number 3 maid's uniform Killing Princess is fine too. Moreover, this maid's black uniform is recognized as the most beautiful uniform amongst all the great sword maids' legacies. Little Shi, you're so lucky. Hua Hua needed the maid's uniform and smiled at Yunshi. Wait a minute, I don't feel lucky at all. The Killing Princess and the great sword maids. Weren't they all female? Yunshi never thought that someday he would be forced to wear a dress. Hua Hua, what the hell was your brain thinking up? Don't worry about the size. I heard that the size of great sword maid's uniform could be adjusted automatically according to the figure of the user. Besides, it seems like the Killing Princess was a flat-chested girl. You won't even have to make a lot of adjustments to get into the dress. Hua Hua held the gorgeous maid's black uniform in her hands, approaching Yunshi step by step. Chapter 68, The Killing Princess. No. No, Hua Hua. Yunshi still resisted. He didn't want to put on such a shameful maid's uniform at all. Little Shi, don't worry, because you will soon get used to wearing it. Didn't we often play the game, Playhouse, when we were children? At that time, you had worn my wedding dress, which I had specially ordered from Western God's domain for you, Hua Hua said with a happy expression. If she dressed her childhood sweetheart up as a girl, in that case, none of those bitches would notice him. Besides, Yunshi was really cute when he wore dresses. 1 stone and 2 birds. What a wonderful plan it was. No, don't mention it. Speaking of that experience, Yunshi didn't even want to remember a bit of it. At that time, he had been too young and naive, and Hua Hua had often cheated him into doing many shameful things. When he was a child, the townspeople had even selected him as the cutest girl suitable for wearing a wedding dress. That was his most painful dark history. Yunshi had tried his best to forget it. If Hua Hua hadn't mentioned it, Yunshi would absolutely not have recalled that dark history again. Well, everything is ready. Little Shi, are you ready to put on the Killing Princess's battle dress? It is made of precious clothes and could offer both great attack power and defense. Besides, it can even repair itself automatically. Only the selected great sword maid can equip this sacred armor. Even in the whole history of great sword maids, this maid's black uniform was the most powerful and unique battle dress. Hua Hua didn't give Yunshi any chance to escape. She cut her finger again. Her red blood fell down, dropping onto the Killing Princess's battle dress. Hua Hua recited the oath to start the inheritance ceremony. In the past, in the Great Land, there were many girls, fighting for their countries and worlds. They offered their lives as a sacrifice, merging with the ancient monster, forging the most powerful great swords. They swore to the old gods. They stepped onto the battlefield. They were beloved by God. They were God's messengers. They sacrificed themselves to fight. They were so powerful and beautiful. Therefore, they were called great sword maids by people. In the name of my sky-flying bloodline, I witnessed the Killing Princess's inheritance ceremony. No! Yunshi wanted to cry out as he saw the maid's uniform flying to him, having an extremely bad feeling in his heart. The maid's black uniform was originally emanating an evil feeling. However, at this time, the evil feeling had disappeared. The uniform turned into countless black silk threads emitting golden light, then it wrapped Yunshi's whole body. Gender verifying. Pass through. Talent verifying. Pass through. Adaptability with dark type power. Pass through. Thou. Behold. Yunshi uncontrollably raised his head and saw a big reddish-black sword. When you look long into the killing itself, the killing looks into you. The center of the sword was hollowed out. A disturbing bloody scent was flowing out from there. The sword blade had an awful black serrated shape, and the handle of the sword was studded with a red gem that was large as a fist. In addition to it, there were 8 small rhombic gems surrounding this gem, which shone with strange but also splendid lights. The name of the sword, Killing Princess. Up until the last holder's death it had killed 135,610,000 living beings, and was named as Killing Princess. It's the most ferocious demon sword amongst all the great swords forged for made of claymore. The person who inherits this sword slaughtered countless beings. That's the price for obtaining this power. Strange, Yunshi smoothly passed through the Killing Princess's inheritance ceremony. However, Hua showed an unbelievable look on her face. Why could Yunshi pass through the Killing Princess's inheritance ceremony so simply? At first, she was going to use her sky-flying bloodline to force the Killing Princess's dress to accept Yunshi. After all, Yun-Yi was a boy. It was impossible that the Great Sword Maid's legacy would recognize him so easily. Great Sword Maid. As the name suggested, only a girl who proved her purity, loyalty, and self-dedication could undertake this career. No, I don't accept it. As if seeing his worst nightmare about to come true, Yunshi decisively rejected the Killing Princess's legacy. Unfortunately, it was too late. The inheritance ceremony is completed. As one of the strongest Great Sword Maid legacies, the Killing Princess's dress and her magic sword were seemingly very pleased with Yunshi. They ignored his words and directly finished the last step. Countless black silk threads surrounded Yunshi, then instantly dismantled his shabby clothes. At the same time, it began to adjust its own size. Whoa! Wow, wow, wow! Hua covered her eyes with her 2 hands, then opened her eyes wide, peeping at Yunshi through her fingers. Finally, Hua saw a pretty girl standing in front of her. Even though she knew the girl was Yunshi, she still couldn't believe that the beautiful girl was her childhood sweetheart. The girl was wearing a gorgeous black ceremonial dress. The ceremonial dress was so beautiful and as astonishing as a princess's dress, which was far beyond the concept of a common maid outfit. Her hair was black. Her delicate skin looked like first-rate silk. Her appearance and behavior were luminous with a kind of gentle grace. Due to nervousness and embarrassment, her lovely face looked so cute as if she was an angel emerging from a painting. Even her chest, which at first was certainly flat like nothing, was also uplifted a bit, as if it was a tradition from the previous Killing Princess. For gold-red gems were studded on her slender waist, then matched with the rosette upon her bosom and the ribbons beside her waist. If she wasn't wearing the lace headdress, no one would connect the ceremonial dress with a maid's. What was even more amazing was that the dress could perfectly enhance her temperament and appearance. At least, when Yunshi surprisedly gazed at his black gloves, and the absolute field between the black silk stockings and the corner of his skirt, he wondered how it was possible that this was his body. The smooth, tender, snow-white skin. Who was this person? No. It was a foul, it was a lie. Yunshi could affirm that he himself had never had such snow-white, flawless skin before. Not only his skin, but even his bones and height seemed to have been modified, so that his body ratio looked more perfect. The Killing Princess dress was like a magic pen, completely hiding Yunshi's masculinity, leaving only a dazzling, enchanted, gorgeous, and perfect young girl in the world. Black and white intertwined, weaving a new Yunshi, who Hua had never seen before. Now, even Hua herself was fascinated by Yunshi's appearance. Oh, her Yunshi sure was suitable for women's dresses. She didn't need to worry about anything now. Chapter 69, Helpless Choice, Little She, how is it? Do you think that it's suitable? Hua Hua circled around Yunxi, clicking her tongue in wonder. Yunxi opened his mouth. He wanted to say no. Of course, this was not the answer. The Killing Princess's maid's black uniform looked perfect on his body. Even the smallest part of the uniform was suitable for his body, as if it was tailor-made for him. Yunxi wanted to say something, but suddenly found that his voice had changed. Where did his male voice go? What the hell was this euphonious voice now? Did the Killing Princess's maid's black uniform even disguise his voice? Don't worry. It's normal to be a little uncomfortable at first. After all, it's the Great Sword Maid's legacy. Hua Hua patted Yunxi's shoulder. She looked quite pleased with Yunxi's current appearance. Cough. What happened to my voice? Yunxi heard his own voice, feeling that his life had taken a wrong direction. No problem, it's all because of the Great Sword Maid's legacy. Hua Hua gazed at Yunxi's chest, then said, Great Sword Maid is a restricted high-level career in Western God's domain. Whichever it is, voice or appearance, its owner must be at the first level. The people who are unqualified can never be a Great Sword Maid. Little Shi, you are very suitable for this career. Just keep practicing. I was a man. Why did I have to be a Great Sword Maid? Yunxi looked at his mischievous childhood sweetheart, crying in his heart. Besides, in this case, you can always stay together with me. Don't you want to stay with me? Hua Hua played cute. Her beautiful eyes gazed at Yunxi with expectation. I don't want to separate from you. I don't want to see any bitches taking you away, just like they did in the dream. Even though I know I am acting recklessly, I still want to keep you by my side. Originally, she had prepared to pay a lot for this, because she was going to distort the Great Sword Maid's legacy. Even if she had sky-flying bloodline, she still had to pay a heavy price. After all, that was a crime against morality. It was all about love. She liked Yunxi. She wanted to stay with Yunxi forever. She couldn't stand the possibility that they would live far apart from each other. She was jealous of him and worried about him, so she committed this crime. Hua Hua, Yunxi lapsed into silence. Even if she had made 10,000 mistakes, the glory shining in her eyes made her hard to refuse her. Hua Hua's dedicated love was too bright, making him feel ashamed for his plan of escaping this domain. Did he really have to stay with Hua Hua? But the key issue was that there was a terrible apostle searching him in the whole Sky Sword God's domain. Can this maid's black uniform really hide my identity? For Yunxi, this was a vital question that had a bearing on his own life. This is absolutely no problem. Even though in the eyes of 7th-rank people, your current appearance is absolutely a cute girl. Said Hua Hua. The Great Sword Maid's legacy is more incredible than your imagination. Since you've passed the test of the Killing Princess's legacy. Speaking of which, Hua Hua showed a puzzled expression, then kept saying, in that case, no one could discover your true identity through your appearance and behavior. Hua Hua looked a little shy. In fact, even I myself can't identify your real identity now. Your disguise is absolutely perfect. As long as you don't take off the Killing Princess's dress, no one can discover your true gender and identity. So, this dress could help him escape from the apostle's searching. After hearing Hua Hua's promise, Yunxi's eyes brightened up. This may be a solution. Rather than escape to some remote and unknown sword domain, maybe it was a better choice to hide his identity by wearing the Great Sword Maid's uniform. If he chose this way, as long as he didn't reveal his identity, his appearance should perfectly cheat anyone's eyes. If he chose to escape, there was actually a great chance of being caught by the nameless apostle. It should be regarded as his last choice. Now, there was another choice in front of him, even if the choice was so shameful. His childhood sweetheart even had the top-level legacy of Western God's domain. What exactly was her true identity? Oh, right. Since you're going to hide your identity, why don't you change your name too? Yun Shi, little Shi. Hua began to think of a decent, feminine name for Yun Shi. May. How about this name? You can still call me Little Shi as my nickname, Yun Shi sighed, finally accepting his destiny of wearing the killing princess's dress. His dark history was enacted all over again. It was still the same girl who forced him to wear women's dresses. Sometimes, history was surprisingly similar. May. It sounds good. Little Shi, from now on, you're my great sword maid, May. The name makes me think of Snow White Blossom. Hua excitedly looked at Yun Shi, who looked so cute while wearing the maid's black uniform. Hua, so you had such a poor taste. Yun Shi found that Hua was excitedly looking at him, but that only made him feel that his future was a dark one. He had no interest in wearing women's dresses. It was better to say that he resolutely objected to wearing them. He didn't even want to remember his dark history of being forced to wear the wedding dress. However, this was the only option he could choose. About his plan of escaping from this domain. Hua was gazing at him. How would it be possible that he could successfully escape her eyes? As a result, he finally had to be disguised as a maid. Well, little Shi. It's time to take the Sword Palace entrance test. Believe me, you will be a blockbuster. Don't worry about those stupid aristocratic children. How could they be in the same class as you? You're the great sword maid chosen by the killing princess's legacy. Just go ahead and beat all of them down. Hua puffed out her small chest and proudly looked at her childhood sweetheart. No, I don't want to be a blockbuster at all. To be seen by all the townspeople, wearing the maid's uniform and taking part in the Sword Palace entrance test. What a terrible torture it was. For the first time in his life, Yun Shi doubted whether he was cursed by his fate. The stars, please tell me that this was just a dream. After I wake up, everything would return to normal. Why was his childhood sweetheart so mischievous? What exactly happened to her and encouraged her to make such a desperate decision? Chapter 70. Step forward hand in hand in the bright sunshine. Hua was running. She was running together with her beloved boy on the familiar street. The world was so beautiful. The sunlight was shining so brightly. To Hua, this was no doubt one of the most memorable days in her life. Hua, are you going to go to the Sword Palace? Yes, uncle. I'm ready to go. Hua waved her hand with a smile. She said goodbye to everyone living in the town, expressing her thanks to them. The world took on a brand new appearance in her eyes. According to her family's schedule, she accepted the Sword Palace's invitation. She was going to join the Sword Palace, staying there till she reached the hero rank. At first, she was planning to wait for 2 years. She wanted to return to town after she had become more beautiful and powerful, and then she could take Yun Shi away. But now, she didn't need to wait any longer because her childhood sweetheart was staying with her. They would undoubtedly walk side by side on the road called life. Everyone, I promise that I will back someday. Hua said goodbye to the townspeople. Although Yun Shi looked embarrassed and reluctant, but she still held his hand tightly. Little Hua, you can come back at any time. We won't forget you. These uncles and the aunts had all seen her grow up. They softly smiled, seeing the best genius of the town off. Hua. Hua, I love you. Please marry me. Hua. They were the town's young boys who all secretly loved Hua. However, they had no confidence that they would pass the Sword Palace's entrance test, so they had to sadly say goodbye to the girl they loved. Sorry, but my whole heart belongs to little Shi. Goodbye, everyone. Please give us your blessing. Hua Hua held Yunxi's hand, running on the familiar street. She was using this method to commemorate her youth that was fading away. That's strange. Who's that girl? I have never seen that girl before. Is she Hua Hua's relative? Is that a maid's uniform? But she looked like a princess. Hua Hua was from Western God's domain. She must be one of her friends. Looking at Hua Hua and Yunxi, the townspeople talked about the unknown girl with each other. However, none of them realized that the beautiful girl wearing the gorgeous maid's black uniform was the baker's shop's young boy, Yunxi. Outside the town by the river bank, there were nearly 1,000 people who had come from all the districts in White Lotus Sword Domain. Everyone, shout with me. There were about 300 people all shouting slogans together. Child Yunhe. Chittle Si Nian. Child San Quan. Win instant success. Overcome all the opponents. Realize the dream. It went without saying that they were the 3 child servants, belonging to the noble family's camp. Child Snake Bones, you're the best. Child Tianqing, do you best in the test. Other several families also hired people to encourage their families' participants. Compared to these noble families, the civilian people's camp was a little bit quiet and few in number. They were all common people, struggling to practice themselves so that they could take part in the test. In fact, if only the talent was involved in, the civilian people's camp wasn't inferior than the noble family's camp. However, they lacked outfits, weapons and educations. Most of the civilian people were already 18 years old, because they had to dig out all their potentialities so that they could compete with the noble family's children. It was almost an impossible goal to achieve the 3rd rank before 18 years old for civilian people. They're just as usual. Still so noisy, a 2nd-rank swordman, who was wearing cloth armor and had 3 scars on his face, said and looked at the noble family's camp in envy. We don't compete with them. We compete with each other, another 2nd-rank swordman shrugged his shoulders. As the people who didn't have too many resources but still reached the 2nd rank before 18 years old, only they knew what a high price they had paid for this. Humph. These noble kids are too mollycoddled. If they were on battlefield, they would die before they realized it. Several 1st-rank swordmen looked at these noble families' people with jealousy. They all wore the same clothes and had similar behaviors. Obviously, they were the civilian people who once joined the army. Noble and civilian had naturally opposition, because the Sword Palace only recruited a certain number of new disciples. But every time, most of the quota was occupied by the noble family's children. Although the Sword Palace didn't choose its disciples' identity, race or class, but the noble families naturally occupied the vantage point on cultivating their children. It was not easy for civilian people to win them. Sigh. Stop it. My cousin is in the Palace of Heaven's Road. If I can't pass through the Sword Palace's test, I will go to there to take their test. After hearing his words, many civilian people sighed. Only the children between 16 to 18 years old could take part in the Sword Palace's entrance test. If you were beyond the age limit, you wouldn't have any chance. Most of the civilian people were already 18 years old. Therefore, they may have to take part in other sex tests if these noble children occupied their last chance. Sword was the most holy and important thing in the whole Sky Sword God's domain. All the young people wanted to be admitted into the Sword Palace. Only the swordmen who had entered the Sword Palace had confidence to feel proud for themselves. Even their parents would rush about telling the good news to everyone they met. You could even say that only after you entered the Sword Palace, you finally could begin to practice the true sword skills and walked on the road leading to the zenith. This time, whichever their identity was, noble family's kid or civilian swordman, they were here for only one goal: join the Sword Palace. This was what Yunshi saw after he arrived at the examination area. Little Shi, I have received the Sword Palace's invitation, so I don't need to take part in the test. I will watch your fight on the platform. Hua Hua smiled and shook Yunshi's hands, then ran towards the Sword Palace's camp. Sigh. Yunshi was still in a daze. He looked around for a while, then walked to the civilian people's camp. He didn't find that whether the noble family's camp or the civilian people's camp, when they saw his movement, they were all dumbfounded. Especially after he walked to the civilian people's camp, the noble family's people gazed at him with confusion and surprise. The civilian swordmen also looked surprised. The mysterious girl wearing a gorgeous maid's uniform was noticeably not the Sky Sword God's domain's local resident. After the girl walked to them, they were all flabbergasted. Chapter 71, Yunshi was surrounded. Lady. You're going the wrong way. Yeah. This is the civilian people's camp, but you look like a girl of nobility from Western God's domain. Be beautiful. The swordsmen of the civilian people's camp were so nervous that they didn't even know how to speak. Heaven pities and protects us. How could they have had a chance to see a lady from Western God's domain before? Besides, the gap between them was too far. Even any of the gems on Yunshi's maid's black uniform was more expensive than their total assets. They couldn't even calculate the exact value of the maid's uniform. Dear lady, you should come here. Which family are you from? I'm sorry for we can't do much for you in this situation, but can I have the honor to serve you? What a beautiful girl. I never thought that I would meet such a beauty. Immediately, several servants ran to Yunshi from the noble family's camp. They flattered Yunshi and invited him to go to their camp. No, thank you, but I belong here. Yunshi looked around with amazement. He was born in the small town. Just a week ago, he was still selling bread in his shop. If he didn't come here, then where would he go? Obviously, Yunshi hadn't realized what a great change had happened to him. But, how can you be a civilian? Several second-rank swordsmen twisted the corners of their mouths. Finally, they opened their mouths to ask Yunshi with doubt. The girl had a soft, delicate body and attractive appearance. Besides, her gorgeous dress looked so unusual. How could a civilian have enough money to buy that? Well, in fact, I was born in this small town, but just returned here a few days ago. I'm just a very ordinary maid. Yunshi pretended that he was ordinary, then naturally walked to the civilian people's camp. Shuffle. Immediately, an empty area appeared in the civilian people's camp. Even the several strongest second-rank swordsmen also followed the crowd, moving away from Yunshi. Impossible. There couldn't be a civilian like this girl in the world. This girl was too beautiful, like an elf coming from the tales. Was she really born in the small town? But she did have pure black hair, like a perfect doll. The people looked at Yunshi and sighed with emotion, although Yunshi still didn't know how remarkable he had become. Hello, everyone. I'm Mei, a maid, and one of the examinees of the Sword Palace's entrance test. Look, I also use sword. Yunshi pointed at the steel sword at his waist, which Hua Hua had prepared for him not long ago. Examinee. You. Oh, so you're going to take part in the test. Maid? Why haven't I seen any maid like you before? After Yunshi said his name, the civilian people around him looked a little relieved. However, none of them believed that such a beautiful girl wearing a Western-style dress was actually a civilian. They were civilians. They knew the difference. Her skin looked like fresh snow, her face looked delicate, her body looked slender, and her maid's black uniform looked pretty on her body. Many noble families' maids were born in common families, but how could it be possible that they had such an attractive temperament and charm? No, not to mention the civilian people's camp, even the noble family's camp's people hadn't seen any maids like Yunshi before. She is sparkling. She is perfect. I had never thought that a maid could be so charming. Child Yunhee's eyes brightened up. Even though he was born into one of the oldest family in White Lotus Sword Domain, he had never seen such a maid. I guess she is a royal maid. She can't be an ordinary person. She must have been trained since her childhood and has special maid-type skills, said Child Xin Yen. A part of his bloodline was from Western God's domain, so his words were credible. Of course. She can't be a civilian, said Child San Quan. He waved his fan's sword and remembered something. Obviously, no matter it was the noble family's camp or the civilian people's camp, they both agreed that Yunshi wasn't an ordinary person. Well, don't pay that much attention to me. I'm just an ordinary examinee, Yunshi said. He was at a loss what to do because so many people were gazing at him. The people around Yunshi felt surprised, excited and enchanted. They tried to show their best in front of him. Brotherly, I have just learned several new sword skills. Do you mind if you practice with me? Well, what a coincidence. I feel that my sword's calling me. It's time to show my best sword skill. Look. My passion is burning. Let's have a warm-up practice before the formal test starts. In the twinkling of an eye, a series of battles had erupted around Yunshi. None of the Sword Palace's entrance test candidates were over 18 years old. They were young and aggressive. After seeing Yunshi's maid's black uniform and his shy look, none of them could discipline themselves any longer. Even several of the most matured candidates couldn't stop their hearts from beating violently. As the poem said, that mild-mannered good girl, awake, asleep, I search for her. If they missed this chance, they would never meet such a beauty again. Her deer-like innocent eyes had captured many people's hearts. After seeing the several strongest swordsmen fight each other for him, Yunshi was dumbfounded. What was wrong with the world? Why? He had just changed his clothes to the maid's black uniform. Why did everything start to go wrong after that? Come here. Don't mind these bad guys, come here. As Yunshi felt distressed, the female swordsman's camp sent him an invitation. Different gods' domains had the same aesthetic standards. Especially if it related to beautiful girls like Yunshi, who had pure black hair and wore an exotic maid's black uniform. Even though they were girls, but they had also been captivated by Yunshi's beauty. Your maid's uniform is so cute. I think it is worth half of the small town. Which family are you from? Or are you a royal maid? May. It's a nice name. Were you born in Eastern God's domain? The female swordsman's camp had dozens of girls. They immediately surrounded Yunshi, didn't give the male swordsman a chance to get close to him. I'm looking at these young girls, Yunshi suddenly felt nervous. Oh, gosh, I have never been surrounded by so many girls before. Why did they look so excited? And their eyes also looked feverish, even making him feel dangerous. He had only put on the maid's uniform. He was still male 100%. Chapter 72, Lucky Black Hair. What perfume are you using? It smells good. Tell me, no matter how expensive it is, I will save money to buy it. No, that thing doesn't exist. I have never used any perfume in my life. Who made this maid's uniform for you? Is he an artistic master in Western God's domain? Why can't I identify the uniform's materials? Tell me who, May. Unfortunately, I don't know whose masterpiece it is. Hua said that it was the Great Sword Maid's legacy, perhaps it really has an unusual origin. Your skin is so soft. How did you nourish your skin? Look, my skin is so rough. Sigh, why is the gap between different people so wide? Sorry. I don't know why my skin suddenly becomes snow white. I remember when I practiced the limit practice, my skin had been left with many scars. May. Oh, May. Little May. Girls really easily get familiar with one another. As long as they accepted you, they would treat you well with all their hearts. At first, as an outsider from Western God's domain, they wouldn't accept him so easily. However, it looked like the Killing Princess's maid's uniform had natural glamour. No matter what your race, gender, or identity was, no one could resist it. At first, the female candidates were also divided into two camps just like the male candidates. However, May was like a panacea. After she came, the two female camps naturally combined into one. Every female liked beautiful things. After seeing the shy and nervous Yunxi, their maternal instinct was aroused. Therefore, after Yunxi joined them, the two female camps stopped opposing each other, and he also naturally became the center of their attention. He did nothing, but naturally attracted everyone's attention. After wearing the Killing Princess's maid's black uniform, he had become so cute and eye-catching. Oh, gosh, were girls really such noisy creatures? Yun 11 was in a daze as he looked at the several female swordsmen surrounding him and being as noisy as thousands of ducks. It wasn't at all as he had imagined. He had thought that girls would be more gentle, soft, and sweet like white sugar. Well, that was excluding Hua Hua. After all, she was his childhood sweetheart that could slay a dragon alone. May, which nearby town were you born in? You must be tired after traveling from Western God's domain. Come here. There is a chair. Yunxi felt dizzy. He hadn't said anything, the girls had clustered around him and let him sit on a green flower chair, which were wrapped in beautiful roses. May, how old are you? 16 years old. After sitting down, Yunxi finally made some time to reorganize his thoughts. It looked like he was welcomed by both the noble girls and civilian girls. How about the test? Do you think you will be admitted to the Sword Palace? Even if you can't pass through the Sword Palace's test, that's not a problem. My family is related to the Heaven's Road Palace. How about going to join their entrance test? Compared to males, we female swordsmen are naturally less favored towards practicing sword skills. If you can't get into the Sword Palace, then the Heaven's Road Palace is also a good choice. Yes, this was a fact in the entire Sky Sword God's domain, especially for mortals where males had a natural advantage in practicing sword skills. Whether it was strength, speed, or explosiveness, in most cases, males were better than females. Female swordsmen could only focus on practicing their speed and flexibility. In the past, Yunxi felt that Hua Hua was the perfect sample of female swordsmen. She could even defeat the 5 tiger generals by using her flying swallow sword. That was perfect proof. Of course, Yunxi had known that Hua Hua couldn't be simply described as a girl who has amazing flexibility. She had gone far beyond the realm a mortal could reach. She slayed the male fiery dragon and fought against Red Lotus Holy Virgin face to face, so that couldn't be. I should have no problems. Yunxi took a deep breath, then organized his thoughts, picking suitable words, because I have reached the 2nd rank now. The female swordsmen lapsed into silence for a while, then they exclaimed at the same time. The 2nd rank. May, are you joking? You're already a 2nd-rank swordsman. The world really has another genius like Hua Hua. Oh, gosh. May, how did you do that? You're even stronger than some generals. You're so strong, and you have such delicate skin and a slender body. Woo woo woo, I also practiced very hard, but why do I only have more muscles? Their exclamation wasn't without reason. A 2nd-rank swordsman was already able to be an army's general. Even the strongest girl amongst them had just reached the peak of the 1st rank. It was not easy for females to improve themselves. Only a few female swordsmen could reach the second rank before 18 years old. Hua Hua had already reached the third rank and received the Sword Palace's invitation, but she was simply a monster-like genius in these girls' eyes. Monster-like. Hua Hua. As these girls opened their eyes wide and gazed at Yun Shi also smiled bitterly and looked at them. Hua Hua wasn't even simply a third-rank female swordsman. If a person reached the first rank, that person was already able to be regarded as a genius. It was already very lucky if a small town produced a first-rank swordsman every few decades. If a person reached the second rank, that person was able to be a core member of the army and would be regarded as a prospective general. If a person reached the third rank, for example, the 5 Tiger Generals, they were the top-level commanders in the army, and were also the top-level martial masters ordinary people could see. There were higher ranks, but to the people who lived in the sword handle area of the sword domain, that was beyond the limit they could reach. Therefore, as a second-rank swordsman, he had been regarded as a monster-like genius in their eyes. May, please do me a favor. Oh, me too. Oh, right. May, please grant my request. After realizing that Yun Shi was probably the strongest person in the female swordsman camp, the noble girls and the civilian girls all put their palms together devoutly, praying to Yun Shi. What? Yun Shi was at a loss what to do after seeing their behavior. Was this some satanic ritual? Please, give me a lock of your hair. Me too. 1. I just need a lock of your hair. I will make it into a lucky charm. There was a tale in the whole sky sword god's domain. Before you took part in an exam, if you could obtain a black strand of hair from the strongest and most beautiful girl, then you could successfully pass through the exam. However, as mortals, most of the female swordsmen were not that strong and were still at the first rank when they took the test, therefore, most of the time, they couldn't find any people who fit the bill. However, now, Yun Shi was the person who fit the bill in their eyes. The strongest second-rank female swordsman. The most beautiful girl. Besides, she had the most beautiful black, straight hair. Chapter 73, Cute Girls, Whoa. Alright, Yun Shi had never heard about this tale. However, the girl's eager eyes were too much for him to take, even though he wasn't a real black-haired girl. Before he wore the maid's black uniform, he had common black, short hair. He didn't know what the killing princess's maid's uniform had done to him, making his hair suddenly grow down till his waist. Waist-length hair, flat chest, slender feet and snow-white skin. Was this what the killing princess looked like when she was alive? In Yun Shi's imagination, the exiled princess, the girl called Killing Princess, the girl who had beautiful black, long hair, was brandishing her giant demon sword fighting on one after another battlefield in that appearance in the past. Take this, although Yun Shi felt weird, he still plucked out a strand of hair and handed it over to the girl in front of him. He felt a slight pain. This meant that it wasn't a disguise, but real black, long hair. Did he really become a black-haired girl in other people's eyes? Even though he had seen his current appearance in Hua Hua's mirror, he had still thought that the doll-like, black-haired girl couldn't be real. Thank you. I will value it for a lifetime. The freckled girl held Yun Shi's hair firmly. She looked pretty excited. It was easy to see that she wasn't born in a rich family. Her freckles made her feel inferior when faced with the noble girls. Yun Shi's black hair brought out her confidence, making her hidden youthful dynamism burst out. Everyone could easily detect her change after she obtained Yun Shi's hair. Without an inferiority complex and nervousness, she looked like a sunflower blossoming towards the sun, so bright and cheerful. The tale was true. The strongest female swordsman. The most beautiful black-haired girl. The girl who had both characteristics had incredible magic in her black hair. She could bring good luck. Me. I'm the second. No. It's me. I was here first. May, I have prepared to make the lucky charm. After seeing what change had manifested in the freckled girl, all the girls circled around Yunshi with excitement. There's no need to rush. I will give everyone my hair. Yunshi felt both funny and annoyed when he looked at the girls who wanted to obtain one of his hairs. It was just a fairy tale. Why are you so serious? Fortunately, there were only dozens of girls here. If everyone thought that his black hair contained magic and asked him for his hair, he was afraid that he would be bald. He didn't want to be bald at all. Yes. Everyone, please form a line and remember your number. Soon afterwards, some noble girls came out to keep the order. After all, they were good at dealing with these kind of situations. Their families had trained them from their childhood. If a girl didn't show enough talent, she couldn't take part in the Sword Palace's entrance test. The noble girls who lived comfortable, luxurious lives and only wanted to marry rich husbands wouldn't waste their time practicing sword skills. In order to take part in the test, although they were noble families' children, these noble girls also had put in great effort that was more than the civilian girls imagined. I'm the second. The second girl who obtained Yunshi's hair was a noble girl. She bit her fingers, cheering like a child who had obtained the most precious treasure in the world. I'm the third. The next girl was a noble girl too. She looked more restrained than the second girl, but she still couldn't hide her smile. Were girls the kind of creatures that liked lucky charms so much? Yunshi plucked his hair as he looked at the girls. Once again, he realized how different females and males were. That was just one strand of his hair. Why did they look so excited? Soon afterwards, Yunshi realized that not only the girls wanted his hair. What? They want my hair too. Looking at the servants coming from the noble family camp, Yunshi felt surprised. Yes. Child Yun, he wants your hair. He can pay any amount of money to you, said one of the servants. Wait, you can't keep everything for yourself. Child San Quan is also interested in your hair. Please sell 100 strands of your hair to me. Hey. I'm first. Dear miss, just state a price. Child Xin Yen will never make a counter-offer. Yunshi was at a loss at first. After a while, he took a deep breath with his fingers intertwined. Get out of here. No one wants your filthy money. How dare you ask for May's hair by using such a vulgar method? Is your master really educated? Child Yun, he is an idiot. The girls were angry. They scolded the servants till they escaped away. Puff, Yunshi let out a sigh of relief. He was going to get angry, but the girls had helped him refuse the servants. He looked at the female swordsman with gratitude. Don't worry, May. You have our backing. Humph. 3 childs. But our May is not inferior to them. I heard a rumor that Child San Quan was an illegitimate child. Speaking of Child Yunhee, I heard that he wasn't weaned till 12 years old. He had a team of wet nurses. Child Xin Yen needs to eat 10 pounds of beef every day. Tut, it's no wonder that he is stupid like a cow. The girls talked about the 3 child's shameful past one after another. They didn't even forget to laugh at the dark history in their childhoods. Thank you, Yunshi looked at the girls around him. According to the black strands of hair he had presented to them, there were a total of 37 girls. Because the entrance test was held by the twin witches, the test was extremely difficult. The people who hadn't reached any rank had almost all given up. Compared to the male camp, which had hundreds of people, the 37 girls were the most outstanding girls in the whole White Lotus Sword domain. Most of them came from faraway areas. They had practiced their sword skills from their childhoods, so they finally had the chance to take part in the test. Most of the girls were still at the first rank, but they had courage and confidence. Whichever they were, noble girls or civilian girls, they had the same goal. They were cute, hardworking, innocent, and courageous. They were stronger than Yunshi imagined. Girls were always so attractive and incredible. Chapter 74. Bad feeling. When Yunshi was surrounded by the girl swordsmen, Hua Hua and Red Lotus were looking at each other in a strange atmosphere. So, you're Hua Hua. Red Lotus frowned as she looked at the genius girl who had been received by the Sword Palace. At first, Hua Hua subconsciously tightened up her toes, then she immediately realized it and loosened her toes. Have we seen each other before? The two people asked the same question at the same time. Gee. Are you also having this feeling? You too. They looked at each other in confusion. I'm so sleepy. Sister, good morning. Beside Red Lotus, White Lotus reluctantly opened her eyes. That's weird. Hua Hua tried her best to remember when and where had she seen the twin sisters. Obviously, she couldn't remember anything. Even in Western God's domain, the twin witches were famous. They were known as the best geniuses in the last hundreds of years. However, due to their witch legacy, they had never left White Lotus Sword domain. Therefore, before today, Hua Hua had only heard about their names, but had never seen them personally. Similarly, Red Lotus knew about Hua Hua's identity. She knew that Hua Hua was a sword-skilled genius. However, she was sure that she had never seen Hua Hua before. Is this the so-called feel like old friends at the first meeting? Red Lotus looked at Hua Hua, but still felt that something was wrong. I don't think so. Hua Hua clenched her fist. That feeling was too weird. This was their first meeting, but she had a feeling that the twin witches were enemies. Was she such a narrow-minded girl? No. That was not true. Hua Hua shook her head. It was wrong to hate people she had just met. I'm Hua Hua, the student who will join the Sword Palace. Hua Hua composed her emotions and organized her thoughts, then smiled at the twin witches. I'm Red Lotus, the Sword Palace's witch. Similarly, Red Lotus tried to forget the uneasy feeling, then showed a smile too. I'm White Lotus. I'm also the Sword Palace's witch. White Lotus gently looked at Hua Hua. The ring of star and moon was shining on her head. They look pretty gentle. Why am I still feeling that they are enemies? After seeing the famous twin witches, Hua Hua found that they were just like what the rumor said. They both had great power and amazing personal charm. The older sister, Red Lotus, was confident and deliberate. She was a natural leader that could deal with any tough matter. When they talked about sword skills, they appreciated each other, because they both were great geniuses and had many common interests. The younger sister White Lotus was somehow logy. She often suddenly giggled alone. However, she had an innocent heart and was pure like a crystal, just like what her name implied. The mighty older sister and the attractive younger sister. They were a pair of perfect twin sisters. When they held each other's hand, even Hua Hua could feel their fathomless power. They were not overrated. On the contrary, the external world underestimated them too much. They had a limitless, bright future. Hey, White Lotus was immersed in her own inner world as she touched the star and moon ring. She wasn't listening to Hua Hua and Red Lotus's sword skill discussion at all. Sorry, my sister often behaves like that. Red Lotus embarrassedly looked at her sister, who was immersed in her fantasy. What a terrible dream it was. Last night, White Lotus and her had the same nightmare again. Her sister lost her head over that fictitious prince again. She couldn't remember the details, but in the dream, that damned prince controlled a fire-breathing dragon to challenge her. Then he took the opportunity to seduce her innocent sister, making her fall in love again. You damned prince, don't let me see you again. The next time, I will tear you into 10,000 pieces. Oh, the ring is really beautiful. Hua didn't know of the reason, but when she looked at White Lotus's star and moon ring, for the first time in her life, she felt an intense desire, as if there was a sound roaring in her heart announcing, that treasure should belong to me. That is too weird. What is happening to me? Why did I suddenly feel that the twin witches were enemies? Now, I myself want to steal the younger sister's ornament. Hua, you are not an avaricious dragon. No. I must smile. The twin witches are nice people, and they have no contradiction. Besides, the older sister is a really good conversation partner. Hua, you can't be that narrow-minded. You can't be defeated by your inexplicable desire. All right. It's time to start the Sword Palace's entrance test. Let's go hold the test. In fact, the entrance test is organized specially for you. Why did so many people hear the rumor and come here? I heard that there were even several third-rank swordsmen. Speaking of the several third-rank swordsmen, Red Lotus did not look very happy. Except for the weird feeling when they first met, Red Lotus quickly accepted Hua and admitted her power. Hua deserved to have the legendary bloodline. Her talent was far beyond her contemporaries. It wasn't difficult for her to reach the hero rank. It was the Sword Palace's honor to get a genius like Hua. She welcomed Hua to go to the Sword Palace. Of course, the most important reason was, Hua was a girl. She wouldn't become a threat. If she was male, Red Lotus would absolutely not allow her to get so close to White Lotus. Let's go. I can tell you that you will see a surprise in the test. After the weird feeling disappeared, Hua also quickly accepted Red Lotus as her friend. Geniuses always easily got closer to each other. Red Lotus and Hua were two geniuses at the same level. It was hard for them to see another genius like themselves, so they immediately became friends. Prince. Thank you. We will never separate from each other. At this moment, only White Lotus could see that the ring of star and moon was shining with bright lights. The gold-red light of the sun. The silver-white light of the moon. The colorful lights of the stars. The primal fire was burning inside the ring of star and moon. It illuminated White Lotus's crystal pupils, reflecting the prince's figure inside her eyes. At this moment, her prince was in front of her, so close that she could nearly touch him. Even though you have changed your appearance, pretended to be another person, you're still my prince. Can you hear my voice? Can you see my eyes? My, prince. Yunshi suddenly had a chill. He felt his back grow cold as if he was a prey, and now, the hunter had found him. Chapter 75, Xiao Chao, Little Grass. Therefore, the Sword Palace's entrance test begins now. On the platform, the several sword skill tutors announced. The entrance test, which was held by the twin witches personally and had gathered almost all the young people of the right age, finally started. The selection method was actual combat. Nothing could be more suitable than this method to show the genius's actual combat power. The candidates chose their opponents by drawing straws. Countless white light leaves flew out from the twin witches' position, dropping like feathers onto all the young candidates' heads. They were just the right amount for every candidate. The first exam area, number 3 vs number 17. The second exam area, number 7 vs number 35. The third exam area, number 10 vs number 51. The fourth exam area, number 31 versus number 75. The drawing straws were random. The people who had been called appeared on the stage one by one. The stage was nearly 30 square meters, its edge surrounded by hazy light. That was the magical ward made by the twin witches personally, which meant that after you appeared on the stage, unless you admitted your defeat or were defeated, there weren't any other choices. Win, win and win, till you become the last winner. This was the rule of the Sword Palace's entrance test. However, if the loser showed enough talent in the fight, the person still had a chance to be admitted into the Sword Palace. After all, only the twin witches could decide if the candidates were entitled to pass through the test. In the other areas of White Lotus Sword Domain, there were many similar tests being held. However, all the noble families only paid attention to this unheralded small town, because the people who held the test were the future twin masters of White Lotus Sword Domain, the twin witches. Even though they didn't really show their faces in front of the public, however, the truth that the future masters of White Lotus Sword Domain were looking at them was already making the candidates get excited. For this day, they had wasted many thoughts to arm themselves to the teeth. As future elites coming from noble families, they believed that they would become the winners of their generation. However, the next development was out of everyone's expectation. In the first exam area, the first battle was ongoing. One of the combatants was a noble family's child. His name was Lin Feng. Although his fame was inferior to the three childs, he was one of the top 10 swordsmen amongst all the noble family's candidates. He was good at fierce wind sword skill. He was a real elite. His Lin family's force was all over the whole Eastern Gods domain. Not only in Sky Sword Gods domain, they were also famous in other gods domains. Although his family was just a branch of Lin family in White Lotus Sword domain. However, he had reached the second rank at the age of 17, which meant that his family training was successful. He was at the second rank, and his opponent was just at the first rank. In any circumstances, he should have been able to win the battle with an overwhelming advantage. His goal wasn't just passing through the first round, but to become one of the top 16. His final goal was squeezing into the queue of top 8. However, he faced a wall. A desperate wailing wall. Why is your sword so nimble? Why are your actions so skillful? Don't get me wrong. You're just a village girl. Lin Feng's opponent was the girl who had received the black-haired maid's first strand of hair. Even she herself didn't know her own name. The villagers told her that she was a kid they had brought back from the wild, so they called her Xiao Chao, Little Grass. She liked this name, because her life was similar to what the name meant. No matter how bad the environment was, she still grew sturdily and tried her best to live. The village she lived in was a poor village in the lowest area of White Lotus Sword Domain. Everyone had a hard life. No one could easily fill their belly all the year round. As an orphan, she knew how hard it was to survive in the world. From 4 years old, she had began to help other people. When she was 5 years old, she had to go to the forest to catch little bugs to fill her belly. As time went by, 16 years had passed. Xiao Chao had become the only first-rank swordsman in the whole village, becoming the only glory of the villagers. To such a poor village, a first-rank swordsman was already monumental, that it could be recorded into the village's pedigree. With the villagers' blessings and expectations, Xiao Chao had walked a long way alone. Finally, she had hitchhiked a kind noble girl's carriage, coming to the examination place. She had never learned any sword skills systematically. Compared to Lin Feng, who had been trained as an elite from his childhood, she should not have been at the same level as him. Xiao Chao had clearly understood this even before she saw her opponent. Her journey should have stopped here. This was an opponent she couldn't beat. She had seen the haughty child's battle before the test. Even his weapon and his sword skill were both something she could never obtain. If Lin Feng was a spreading tree, then she was a supple grass stalk. But that isn't the reason for me to give up. At any rate, I have obtained a lucky charm from the black-haired girl, didn't I? With this faith in her mind, Xiao Chao brandished her sword. Then the situation reversed. After she brandished her sword, Xiao Chao suddenly found that the world seemed to have changed. Why was her body so light? Why was her heart so peaceful? Shouldn't she feel nervous to the extent that her heart would explode? She felt that something was growing inside her body. It was a seed. The seed was taking root and sprouting, releasing a mysterious power in her body. Time seemed to have slowed down. At first, Lin Feng's sword should have been sharp and unstoppable, but now, Xiao Chao just felt that his moves were flawed. Not only that. She also had a hunch about where Lin Feng's attack would come from and what his stance would be. She felt as if she had fought with Lin Feng over 100 times and had known everything about him. Was this the power of the lucky charm? With this incredible feeling, Xiao Chao followed her instinct to brandish her sword. Ding! Lin Feng's sword suddenly stopped. Xiao Chao's sword straightly hit the sword skill's flaw, blocking Lin Feng's sword. Chapter 76, The Girl's Impossible. That's impossible. You're a monster. Why can you break my fierce wind sword? Lin Feng shouted with anger. He had almost gone mad. Yes, that's impossible. Absolutely impossible. How can a village girl know his fierce wind sword so well? That's his family's ancestral sword skill. Even though his family was just a small branch of the entire Lin family, however, fierce wind sword was a sword skill that could be practiced till the hero rank. It represented Lin family's tradition and glory. You're just a village girl. How can you know fierce wind sword's weakness? No, she wasn't simply aware of his weakness. It looked like she had predicted his every single move. His every single move and charge had all been destroyed. Xiao Chao also wondered about why she felt so familiar with Lin Feng's sword skill. When he held the sword and moved his shoulders, she knew that he would play his fierce wind sword. When he jumped back and charged, she knew that his next move was line drive. When he drew back his sword and lifted his chest, she knew that he was going to start the triple attack. She didn't know the reason. She just knew what he was going to do, as if they had fought each other over 100 times, so that she had remembered all his instinctive moves. If it wasn't because she was just at the first rank and her reaction speed was slightly inferior to Lin Feng, the battle would have already finished within the first 3 rounds. Even though there was a gap between their strengths, but she could predict Lin Feng's every move. The battle was one-sided. To everyone's shock, the person who had the upper hand wasn't Lin Feng, but Xiao Chao. Ding! Xiao Chao's sword wasn't fast nor powerful. However, she could always find Lin Feng's weakness at the crucial moment. Xiao Chao's sword skill was like the breeze and the swaying grass. She wasn't fast, but also not slow. Sometimes she even purposely avoided head-on confrontation, keeping her steady attack mode. Before launching an attack, prepare your defensive. Before you win the match, never be conceited. She was like a common little grass stalk, taking root and sprouting. No matter how bad the environment was, she would keep growing. Her sword skill was a mortal sword skill, the most unpretentious sword skill. However, at this time, the little grass seemed to have obtained a bit of incredible spirituality. Due to this, the battle was overturned. Fierce wind triple attack. Lin Feng was angry. He performed the sword skill that he had planned to use in the quarterfinal. He held his sword with his both hands. That was dangerous. Xiao Chao instinctively realized that she couldn't block the attack, so she immediately took 3 steps backwards. Cutting thorn. The cold sword blade almost touched Xiao Chao's forehead. Lin Feng's attack had almost reached the limit of mortals. Swallowing the moon. A moonlight cold sword light spread out in the air, tearing up the edge of Xiao Chao's skirt, exposing her healthy skin. Right now. Xiao Chao had seen it. She had seen the future of a second later. The last attack of fierce wind triple attack, swift slashing. It was formed by brandishing a sword hundreds of times and would never stop before the user beat down the enemy. It was Lin Feng's last and strongest attack. However, before launching the attack, he had to perform a special action to draw back his sword in order to burst out his fierce wind-like will and spirit, then brandish the fierce wind-like terrible sword. She couldn't block the last attack. That was the core of fierce wind sword, and the base leading to the higher realm of Lin family's traditional sword skill. It was an attack that had reached the third rank at that very moment. This was the source of Lin Feng's confidence, his base to make him squeeze into the list of top 8. This was his trump card, making him invincible amongst all the second-rank swordsmen. As long as he didn't meet the 3 third-rank childs, Child Yunhe, Child Xin Yan, and Child San Quan, he had the confidence that he could win every fight. Unfortunately, something had happened to his opponent, Xiao Chao. Charging. As Lin Feng was going to brandish his sword, Xiao Chao moved. For the first time in the test, Xiao Chao used all her strength without reserve. Xiao Chao focused all her mind on the sword. She had never been so focused, for an unknown voice was telling her in her heart that this brandish would bring her victory. No! Lin Feng shouted with despair as he saw her sword aiming at his only weakness. 1 second. He only needed 1 second. After that, his terrible continuous attack would smash the unknown village girl. The twin witches were holding the test. They would stop him before he really killed her, but his victory was doomed. The girl was just a village girl. How could it be possible that she could block his strongest attack? After he had learned this sword skill, he had never performed it in front of others. He thought that he could catch his enemy off guard with this surprise attack. However, how did you know that I would use this sword skill? Lin Feng shouted in his heart. In his fierce wind triple attack, the only weakness would be exposed at the moment he drew back his sword. Chi! Xiao Chao's sword straightly stabbed in Lin Feng's heart. Red blood sprayed into the air. The feeble feeling of suddenly losing too much blood made Lin Feng kneel down. His fierce wind sword naturally stopped. Gradually, his eyes closed. Arg! Lin Feng shouted, waking up from his nightmare with his body breaking out in a cold sweat. Young Master! Young Master woke up. Thank God. You scared me. I'm not dead. Lin Feng looked at his heart. There was a light scar, and his clothes had also been ripped to shreds. He was really only a step away from death. No wonder that he would have that nightmare. No, you're not dead. Before the girl stabbed you, you had been teleported to another place by the twin witches. That was really breathtaking. Fortunately, you're still fine, my young master. Fine. Could this be called fine? Lin Feng looked at the black scar with a nasty look. Don't mind it, young master. The test was too abnormal. Yes, that was too strange. Not only you, the other childs were also defeated. Child Li Wei and Child Luoan had also been defeated by the girls. Lin family's servants immediately told him the freak event happened in the test to comfort him. Have Li Wei and Luoan been defeated? Lin Feng showed a weird look on his face. White Lotus Sword Domain didn't have too many noble families. Therefore, the noble families knew each other very well. Child Li Wei and Child Luoan's ancestors were from Western God's domain. Their families had complete legacies which weren't inferior to his Lin family's legacy. He always regarded them as his powerful opponents. Had the girls also defeated them? Gosh! They were just a group of girls who were only at the first rank. What was wrong with the world? Chapter 77, Yunshi Seeds on the Sword Palace's platform. Red Lotus showed an uncommonly seen smile. I've seen many good girls in this test. Yes. Their sword skills are very nimble. Hua Hua nodded, but she also looked a little confused. The girls' steps were nimble, their prejudgment was accurate, and their sense of timing was exquisite. However, that made them feel familiar to her. These girls' sword skills did not look like those from White Lotus Sword Domain, but a bit like her style. That was natural. Looking at the two girls who were fighting each other on the stage, Yunshi couldn't help but slightly twist the corner of his mouth, because the girls were using his seeds. Master, are you satisfied? Finally, your ability has been awakened. Mayer's soft voice appeared behind Yunshi's ears. Yes. Just now, when Yunshi presented his black hair to these girls who were eager for luck, some switch suddenly turned on in his brain. It wasn't the system's power, but his own power. It had naturally awakened. The Starchild's love system finally showed a small part of its secret to him. Detect a target. Locking, excellent adaptability. Detect a target. Locking, normal adaptability. Detect a target. Locking, wonderful adaptability. Start to link them. Yunshi could clearly see one thread after another suddenly appearing amongst the girls who had obtained his black hair and himself. The threads were invisible and impalpable, but they did exist, joining together. He didn't know why the threads suddenly appeared. They looked very like the thread between Hua Hua and him, but the threads were much smaller and thinner. They looked as if they would break up at any time. Capture the first target. Capture the second target. Capture the 37th target. Identify the medium. Screen the targets. Find the first eligible person. The first chosen person was the girl named Xiao Chao, the freckled girl who obtained Yunshi's first strand of hair and had a very ordinary birth. Her adaptability was excellent. She was a very outstanding girl amongst all the girls. After a few seconds, similar prompts appeared in rapid sequence. Find the second eligible person. Find the third eligible person. In order to reach this small town, the girls had taken the trouble of traveling a long distance. They were all excellent girls, otherwise they wouldn't have the confidence to take part in the test. In that case, all the girls naturally passed through the examination. After that, something fantastic happened. Even though this wasn't the first time Yunshi had seen this scene, but he still felt incredible. Releasing the seeds. Yes. The star system started to help Yunshi make seeds, then sent them to the girls via the threads. It was like what happened when Yunshi obtained Hua Hua's seed and the Twin Witch's seed. These girls obtained Yunshi's seeds. Yunshi's battle experience in the bloody trials, his understanding about the green hippos, the 5 tiger generals, the childs, the weakened abilities from Hua Hua and the Twin Witches. They were all poured into the girls' bodies together with Yunshi's seeds. They were Yunshi's greatest treasures. In this fantastic way, they turned into seeds and entered the girls' bodies. After that, a wonderful thing began to happen. According to the difference in their physiques and practice methods, the girls' bodies immediately found the most suitable part from Yunshi's seeds and started to absorb them. Because they were just at the first rank, most of them chose the Quicksilver Motion, weakened version, Yunshi's understanding about sword skills, weakened version, and Yunshi's battle experience. After that, things started to develop in a weird direction. After obtaining Yunshi's seeds, the girls performed much better than normal. They kicked the child's asses, making them wail like ghosts and howl like wolves. The excellent girls like Xiao Chao even beat down the second-ranked childs. The first round of the entrance test had almost finished, and the girls around Yunshi had almost all passed through the first round. Only Yunshi hadn't started his fight yet. So, the seeds. Can I make them by myself? Feeling the links amongst the girls and himself, Yunshi had a queer expression on his face. Of course. After all, Seed of Soul was an ability invented by you. In the past, you often chose to learn unknown abilities by using this method. Master, you're still too weak now, so the stars help you find high-level seeds, in order to help you become stronger. Master, after you become strong, you can secretly choose your target by yourself. Sharing the seeds is also an ability you invented. The more people you're linking to, the more you will benefit. The girls who have your seeds can offer their understanding and experience to you, helping you improve your seed. As long as the number of seeds isn't beyond your control limit, you can link with as many people as you can. Mayer's explanation finally let Yunshi understand how unusual his past life was. He could even create such powerful soul magic in the past. Starchild. It looked like it was a career that was good at soul magics. Oh right, are there any disadvantages to the girls? If possible, Yunshi didn't want to involve other people in his private matters. What had happened just now was just an accident. The disadvantage is if you are dead, the seeds will lose efficacy. There are no other problems. On the contrary, if you can keep growing, their seeds will also be updated with new data from you. You will offer them more power and experience. This is your special ability, the perfect soul magic. It's amazing. So, don't hesitate, Master. As long as there are suitable candidates, just link your seeds to them. When your seeds are all over the universe, that will be magnificent. After hearing that the seeds wouldn't have any adverse effects on the girls, Yunshi let out a sigh of relief. At any rate, he hadn't made any unforgivable crimes. Hey! On the stage, the last girl swordsman defeated her powerful opponent. She grasped the lucky charm in her both hands and showed a bright smile to Yunshi. The seeds didn't have any disadvantages. Chapter 78, Black Flying Swallow. Finally, the first round of White Lotus Sword Palace's entrance test was going to come to a close. Outside of everyone's expectation, the female swordsman camp burst out with amazing fighting capacity. Almost all of them had defeated their opponents and broken into the second round test. They even defeated famous children such as Lin Feng, Li Wei, and Luoen. Their combat gains were way beyond everyone's imagination. However, their record would end here because the last person stepping onto the stage was one of the three childs, Child Si Nian, and his opponent was the only second-rank female swordsman in the female swordsman camp, the mysterious black-haired maid named Mei. Cheer up, Child Si Nian. Please revenge for Child Lin Feng. Crush her. Show your masculinity to the girls. Child Si Nian had stepped on the stage. He raised his head and lifted his chest, looking at Yunshi with his sharp eyes. I have to admit the fact that you're pretty strong, but sorry, the test will only have one winner, and that winner is me. Yunshi was speechless. Before the fight began, Child Si Nian had claimed his victory. After a while, Yunshi said, well, hope you will teach me more. You're welcome. I know as a girl, you're pretty good to be a second-rank swordsman at this age. Probably you're also very good at sword skills, just like these female swordsmen before. However, that isn't enough to defeat me. I'm not like these children who are lacking practice, Child Si Nian said, then twisted his neck. His body let out a successive burst of clear sounds. That meant that he had developed his muscles to their current limit. Child Si Nian was indeed unlike other children. His bloodline was from Western God's domain and his height was taller than any other person there. His strapping body was about 2 meters tall. His 4 limbs were slender but strong. His muscles were so compact to the extent that they seemed to be exploding at any time. Besides, his sword was a sophisticated two-handed blue heavy sword from Western Thunder Army. He looked like a natural general or hero in a story tale. He was even taller and stronger than the 5 tiger generals. His strength was the well-deserved number 1 amongst the 3 childs. Yunshi clearly remembered that when he killed Child Si Nian in the trial, the soul he dropped was even slightly larger than the soul Child San Quan dropped, although Child San Quan's comprehensive strength was the strongest amongst the 3 people. Compared to the female swordsman, his physique had given him a great advantage. Well, he was probably even stronger than the green hippo. After remembering all the enemies he had seen, Yunshi decided to regard Child Si Nian as a slim green hippo with strength united. After all, the green hippo hadn't had any weapons. In terms of quality, Child Si Nian's two-handed heavy sword was even better than the two-handed sword Hua Hui used to slay the fiery male dragon. 3. I need only 3 attacks to defeat you. This isn't a place for girls' house game. Child Si Nian arrogantly pointed his 3 fingers straight up, claiming his victory to Yunshi. 1. Child Si Nian shouted. His whole body heightened and his muscles tensed up. After that, he turned into a 2.5-meter-tall giant and started to charge towards Yunshi. Along with his steps, his strength also became more furious. The stone bricks under his feet were all tramped down as if he was a running giant. He was coming. Although Yunshi had killed Child Si Nian once in the trial, however, he had the help of the Crane Wing's twin swords at that time, so he still didn't know a lot about the 3 childs' hidden abilities. However, Yunshi had also thoroughly remolded himself after that. With holding his sword in his hand, Yunshi felt extremely bellicose. His blood was so hot and crazy as if it was burning. This was the killing princess's legacy. In his mind, some voice was resounding, kill. 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 Make everything bloody. Let the blood flow all over the earth, the sea, and the sky. Only killing was the supreme goal. Only blood can satisfy the desire in your heart. Release all restraints. Kill every enemy. What a dangerous legacy. If Yunshi hadn't obtained Hua Hua's seed and the Twin Witch's seed, he probably would have been conquered by this bloody desire, becoming a killing machine. The killing princess's legacy was really too dangerous. It wasn't a power any ordinary people should obtain. It was very likely that the person who inherited this bloody desire would gradually become insane and uncontrollable as he became stronger and stronger. At this time, Hua Hua's talent and the Twin Witch's spiritual talent played a pivotal role. The 2 seeds helped Yunshi control the bloody desire, and turned it into his motivation, temporarily increasing his speed and physical functions. The cold sword blade reflected Yunshi's face. He was so calm and beautiful. His black long hair appeared moonlight-like with mysterious lights. That was the killing princess's gorgeous appearance attained once appeared on the battlefield she had stepped in. At this moment, time seemed to have become slower than normal. No, time didn't become slow. It was Yunshi's thinking speed, blood flow velocity, and neural reaction speed becoming faster than usual under this mode. Hua Hua's talent helped Yunshi get used to the high speed, performing the killing princess's true ability. I had seen that. You would use that skill. Yunshi raised his head with his black hair blowing in the wind. He gazed at the figure who was launching a leap attack at him. As Yunshi expected, the methods used may vary, but the principle was the same. The skill you often used in the trial was your strongest skill. Yunshi stood on his tiptoe. The next moment, he also jumped up in the air. Haha, you're bringing about your own destruction. Child Si Nian raised the corner of his mouth. His attack was fierce as always. He never needed defense or route of retreat. No matter who the enemy was, he always launched a direct attack. Not too many people in the world could block his leap attack. Suddenly, he felt his body becoming cold like a cube of ice. His eyes also lost sight. Why did he suddenly see a swallow flying across the sky? What was that? In countless people's eyes, a black swallow unbelievably streaked across the sky, brushing past Child Si Nien's side. Before Child Si Nien fell down to the ground, the black swallow had disappeared in the air. Bang! Child Si Nien's face heavily smashed on the ground. With 3 wounds on his back, he lay down on the ground, keeping his body unmoved. A perfect flying swallow sword, Mei. Hua Hua's face wreathed with smiles as she clapped her hands. As she had thought, killing Princess was indeed a great sword legacy that was suitable for her little she. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.